Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. So let me just ask the chat if are we all coming in loud and clear and audible and visible and
from the
whateverable? Yep.
The beach.
We all good? We all gravy? Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're good to go. So here we are, Wavedash 9. Thank you so much, everyone. It's really an honor to have these legends on the screen right here. I don't know what to say. So thank you very much for making the time for this. Today, we're going to talk about, well, basically, recently there's been a lot of negativity circulating around the Tekken community. And the aim of this podcast is to cut through it and try and find some kind of constructive, positive solutions to everything. Assess what all the criticisms are that the community is leveling at Tekken, and see and try and offer some suggestions, perhaps to Bandai Namco or the community, about a possible way to go forward. So let's just go around and introduce everyone. I don't think anyone here needs an introduction, but let's start with the one and only Arslan Ash. Hello.
Hello. So I am Arslan Ash, and I am sponsor player for V/esports, and I am also Red Black Sleep. Yeah, that's it.
Wonderful, thank you. A very, very humble introduction, given you're arguably the best player in the world. And also we have Dinosaur.
Hi, my name's Dinosaur. I'm an old school player from the UK who mains Brian.
Brilliant, thank you. And Fergus.
I'm Fergus. I'm from Ireland. I play Asuka, Julia, and I made the Tekken World Tour finals twice, and I'm a professional cosplayer.
A damn good cosplayer too.
Perfect.
Okay, awesome. And Spag.
Yes, hello, I'm Spag. I commentate and I wear sunglasses. And I'm not
Awesome.
ripped.
We'll get to Rip soon. That's the other Rip. Mihawk.
I think he's the other Rip.
One of
Hey
Rip
guys,
one,
I'm
Rip two.
Mihawk.
Okay, go for it.
I'm a German Tekken player, and yeah, I stream on Twitch.
Awesome. And MYK.
What's up, guys? MYK, commentator, player, level up your game, content creator, all that stuff. Yeah, and I'm a Steve main. I feel like we're just going around saying our mains too.
Well, usually on the overlay, we actually have the mains underneath, but there are so many goddamn people, we couldn't actually fit them on this one. So, yeah, we'll just have to use your imagination. And the one and only Rip.
Hey, how's it going, guys? I'm Rip. I'm Tekken community member Rip, actually not an employee of Bandai Namco, so I play law.
I like how you pointed that out. I'm not employed by Bandai Namco.
People don't seem to understand.
And what's up, everyone? MyManSWE here, and I'm a Tekken God Prime. Best player on this podcast, so listen to me. Listen to me.
And last but certainly not least, Ryan Hart.
Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Hart, and I house sweep.
Sweet bang. Sweet bang, as we like to call it.
Been in the fighting game community for a very long time, over 20, I think this year is my 25th year. I'm one of the first pioneers of the fighting game community, and I started off this whole global traveling to enter tournaments, whatever nonsense. So very proud and happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. Okay, so this chat's going to be a little bit different to other episodes of Wavedash because there are so many people. It has to be moderated a bit more tightly. And I'm wearing my OCP t-shirt just to ensure that the law has been laid down, is enforced. What is a RoboCop slogan? What does he say?
Dead or alive,
You're coming with me.
Well, I don't want to kill anyone, but all right. So what we're going to do first is we're going to try and assess the balance changes from the perspective of competitive players. What do they think about it? How are they affected by Bandai Namco's balancing regime? And I'm going to take a look at Arslan Ash's letter that he put on Twitter about a week ago now, or when the patch was first
2 weeks.
announced, two weeks ago now. Yeah, I'm just going to read it out as a kind of introduction to this topic. So I'll put it on the screen as well so everyone can see. Brilliant. Okay, so let's just read this out. Arslan Ash's letter. I don't understand the purpose of these patch notes. As in the eyes of many Pro Tekken players and myself, the buffs and nerfs that are needed are not being done. I don't understand the approach the balancing team are taking, as there are many characters like Eliza and Asuka who don't have a good low move. Lars and Gigas are still weak. Nina's down forward 1 is the worst in this game, very weak tracking on both sides. And there are a lot of things on which every player in the world who plays Tekken agrees on. They should buff stuff like that. This approach of buffing a character, and then once that character has been used to win a tournament, proceeding to nerf that character and then repeating the cycle is ridiculous. We've seen it with Dragunov, Jin, Devil Jin, Paul, Kazumi, Geese, Steve, Leroy, and now we're just waiting for Mishimas to win 1 or 2 tournaments to see them get nerfed. This is how the balancing team are working. All we have to do is wait for X character to win a tournament if we want that character to get nerfed. For example, a Wise Honey was beating almost everyone in Pakistan, but no one was paying attention to his Akuma at the time. But when he went to international tournaments and won, only then did the balancing team start nerfing the character. I'm glad to have people like Michael Murray and Harada who listen to their audience. I hope they'll listen and implement changes to how the balancing team function on nerfing and buffing characters. We love...
They're not listening.
Right, we'll get to that. So we love and enjoy Tekken. This is why we have invested hundreds of hours in this game. It isn't right to have this negligence in balancing characters. We, as the players, don't deserve that. So, Arslan, what is there anything you want to add to that?
I'm going to add that there should be there should be patch that should be hit after every 6 months or after every 4 months. Okay, I am fine with Kazuya Halsup and I'm fine with the Devil Jin's tracking of Halsup. But you know what happened to me in past before the Leroy case? I was thinking to start Leroy to train myself for Evo Japan, but I was constantly thinking that if I started playing him, maybe they nerf him the very next day, or maybe they nerf him before 2 weeks Evo Japan. So there shouldn't be this mental stress. Like you should know that they will patch the game after certain amount of time, or after 2 months or 3 months. So you can train that character, or you can invest time on a specific character. So I want to add that the patch should be hit after every 4 months or after every 6 months. So yeah, so you can play, or you can invest time in a player, so you can win many tournaments as well.
Okay, so give some time for the meta to kind of settle before making drastic changes. That makes sense. Does anyone want to add anything to that?
Well, I think one thing is, yeah, I agree with that. And if we saw last year when they made the huge change, the season 3 change midway through the world tour, I think it affected a lot of these pro players a lot. And you know, and people have made the point that these people, a lot of them play as a living. You know, they make a living out of this, so it's very important. And if you're to change characters, there's a lot of players that were in contention for getting into the top 20, and then with the changes, it kind of ruined a lot of things. And I think, even though, I don't know if Arslan, we spoke about this as well a little bit, but I think also the Kazumi changes were quite, I still, like I said in the last podcast as well, that I think that there was no need for them, but because Arslan was so dominant, because season 2, everyone thought Kazumi wasn't that good, but now they nerfed her again after Arslan's wins, and then that may have affected him as well. So yeah, I agree that there should be a time period where everyone knows, okay, this is where we're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to say I definitely agree on a lot of the points made, but yeah, I don't like, you guys brought up on the last episode, I really don't like the knee-jerk reactionary patching of a lot of things. Yeah, it's really getting to the point where it's like kind of annoying, and especially if you're like top level pro player and this is like my job, you know, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make it out here on these streets, and it's like I got to worry about doing too well at a tournament. That's like, what? Like, I've never heard that. I have to worry about doing too well with my character because they might nerf them. It's like, yeah, and also too, like, yeah, well, I'm sure we'll get into it, but yeah, just reasonings behind some of the changes other than like this character's doing well. Like it could just be one player taking that character to their absolute limits at that time, but it's just like, okay, it's like we don't like that. We don't like seeing them winning, so let's change it.
Yeah, I want to say that, I think the idea is good about trying to have like a time period of, you get to flesh out the game this much, but in the case that they release a bad patch, because they are not perfect in their patches, right? They've made mistakes. Like Leroy's release, imagine if we had to stick with that for 4 months. That would have been disastrous, right? 6 months for that would have been worse. So I think that we need to hit some kind of point where they can say that this is it, and now we can hold it steady. I think that would be kind of acceptable to most people. But I think that if we just said, you have one chance at this patch, and then that's it for 6 months, I think that's a lot of pressure to get it right. And I don't know that that's really a good idea by itself.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I see that point.
I think it's always going to be difficult if you're not sure what you want as well. Like if you create something and you don't know what you want out of it, I think it's going to have problems if you have a million voices telling you what it should be or what it could be. I think there needs to be a bit more drive from the creator. Like they should have a vision. Like we want this game, because when you have all these opinions come in the end, you have to come to a consensus at some point. At some point, you have to say, this is what we're going with. And that has to be backed with your ultimate direction or creative vision for the game. If you only do what people tell you, you're always going to run into hard spots that you just have no answers for. At some point, you have to say, okay, we've listened to everyone, we've made this and that mistake in the past, and now we've realized that this is what we want and this is what we're aiming for.
I just think like tournament players are in a weird spot because even if you're a character specialist, let's take Rangchu, for example, with Panda. Like, there was no reason for Panda to be nerfed just because Rangchu won Tekken World Tour. Like, there's zero reason for that. So, or Gerlando with Katrina. So, I think it discourages character specialists from using their characters in tournament and winning with them in case they get nerfed, even if they're not top tier or whatever. So, I think it also encourages people to pick more meta characters because they're going to be nerfed anyway. So, just play the best while you have it, for example. So, I think it makes tournament spectators, like the spectator experience, a lot worse because you're seeing similar characters over and over again. Yeah. So I think there's less character variety because these patches, because people are just picking the best character of the patch, just because why not, The
main man Mihawk, was there anything you want to add to that?
I think that the points that Ryan and Fergus mentioned were really important. I think that what is currently maybe missing a little bit is the fact that us of the Tekken community, we don't really know towards what direction Tekken is currently going. In the sense that we don't really know if it's gonna be patched towards making it more beginner friendly or keeping it up so that pros can win with their characters. And what Fergus said was a really good point as well, that you're technically afraid of winning with your main, just so because you're afraid of getting your character nerfed in a sense. And and that's just the thing that we should take into consideration when it comes to this.
Yeah, I think it's really dangerous. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'll just say quickly, like, didn't some Akuma players, like Arslan, he said, you want to play Akuma just to win with him so he gets nerfed. Like, that was the thing with some players, wasn't it?
I was going to say, I think a really dangerous area that they're kind of creeping into now is not only this area where people are afraid of their character being nerfed, but when people get buffed, that people are not happy as well. Like, their characters get buffed and there's still some unhappiness. I think that's a very bad spot.
Yeah, we're in that position now, man. Like, I've heard Hwoarang players, a lot of them, the majority actually from that I've spoken to, I know a lot of Hwoarang players, and they're like, why haven't they taken out the back turn 4 after the 2-throw? Why is this? Why am I keep getting buffed? So when you get to that point, that's when you know, like, it's a bit too much. When the mains are angry at getting buffed, like that's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of super odd. Like when you think about kind of the history of Tekken 7 and all the patches they've had throughout it. I think if you go back to, like, say, NetherRealm games, right? They have a pretty bad history of patching their games. Right. And I remember back in, like, the MK9, MK10 days, when we used to do the Eris podcast, the ATP podcast, Eris used to always complain, like, these guys, they're always nerfing characters. No one likes getting their character nerfed. What developers should do is always buff the weaker characters in the game. That was always, like, his sticking point of patches. And, like, at the time, I was like, yeah, that makes sense, And so I feel like with Tekken 7, I think that's what they've been doing. They've kind of not really nerfed the characters that much. They've always taken, like, little bits and bits. That's why you see with, like, Akuma, they had to nerf him like 8 times or something before he finally got down to where he is now, right? Meanwhile, they haven't really been super buff in the bottom tier, but they really haven't been nerfing the top tier. But they have been giving these changes. We don't understand why, but this character gets some extra stuff now, right? And season to season, you kind of see other characters kind of come up a little bit, but for the most part, you're not really seeing the top tier drop drastically. And I feel like now we're in season 3, I feel like now's the time where they kind of really have to hit Geese and hit Leroy. I feel like those are the top 2 in my eyes that really need to get hit at this point. Maybe nerf Zafina movement a little bit. Down 3, I don't like being a counter hit tool. to bring her in line with the rest of the game. That's why.
Let me pause you there, Arslan. What do you think about Zafina at the moment?
I think Zafina is I still think Kazumi is the strongest in the women, but I think Zafina is the second strongest. Or maybe top 5 in the game or top 6. But right now with Mishima's, maybe top 10 or top 7. If you add 2 Mishima's, maybe top 7 right now. But yeah, this is what I think.
Yeah, Dino.
Yeah,
Dino.
So to what Rip was saying, I mean, I kind of agree with that. I mean, I don't think that necessarily a lot of the tournament specialists have been. I kind of disagree with the point that a lot of character specialists have been driven out of the game by the balance changes. I think it's more like with I think the only real exception here is it might be Katarina, because she's the only character who I think went from, and maybe Dragunov. These are the 2 characters that went from being like tournament presences to being much less tournament presence. But a lot of the Dragunov players were kind of tier horse anyway. But what we've seen from the balancing, it's been a lot of changing and juggling around of a top 20, 25 or so characters that hasn't really changed a whole lot. Like in the list of Arslan's characters, like Dragunov, Jin, Devil Jin, Paul, Kazumi, Geese, Steve, Leroy, like all these characters have been tournament presences throughout Tekken 7 and they've never gone away. So like when these characters have been like Paul got nerfed, Paul is still super strong. Most of these characters are still super, super strong in one way or another. But I think it's the fact that like they continue to juggle around with these top 20 characters in ways which don't seem to make sense at the moment. And like I think what should be considered is not necessarily do we take another 5 points off Akuma's Fireball or something? But like, what about the characters that that don't seem to get much love at all? I mean, they've buffed Nina every game, but she still has a ton of things which just miss for no reason all the time. Lars, again, I think they've done a good job with Lars. I think he's okay now. He's not great, but Gigas is he's a really tough character to balance when I try to think about it. But it really would make sense if they just gave him stuff like some command grabs. But so I think that's the general problem is that like the actual top characters have not changed a lot. They've just sort of, they've played a little game of musical chairs where they'll switch slightly between the positions, but they're all mostly, if you pick these, you were fine. But there's a lot of characters where if you played these characters, you were sort of facing the same problems that you were at the beginning of the game as you are now. So it hasn't, that's the thing, like the musical chairs has not really affected the actual like wider balance of the game at all. It's just small weird things happening the whole time. But if you picked any of these particular guys right at the beginning, you've pretty much been okay.
I'd like to ask a question to everyone. What is it in the Tekken 7 system that makes a character tournament viable? Who are the top tiers and why are they top tiers? What does the Tekken 7 system favor? And who would like to give a stab at that?
Down forward 1.
Down forward 1. Yeah.
Magic 4.
Yeah.
Magic 4. Down forward 1.
Yeah, I think
Throws that launch.
I think
sorry, one more time.
like,
what that launch?
I said throws that launch.
Yeah.
There's quite a few things. You can't just it's not as black and white as that. But I think what it comes down to is like risk reward, and I think that's the crazy thing that was crazy about Leroy. It was risk reward. He took no risk, but he would get crazy reward. down 1+2 and all the other crazy moves that he had, he took almost no risk and he got so much reward out of it. And I feel like when you look at that and you look at certain characters and you think, okay, risk and reward, you balance it and you think, okay, yeah, there is a disparity when you look at the cost. I think that's a huge thing to talk about, especially in tournament. You asked about tournament, right? Tournament viable. Those things matter a lot.
I mean, yeah, to kind of add, like when I look at a character's tool set, right? Like when I was first picking up like Tekken 6, coming from a Tekken 5 when I first started, I was like, when Lars came out, I was like, he's a perfect character. He has all the tools. He has a high, mid, jab string. He has a generic down 4, a good 13 frame down forward 1. He even has like some other bonuses, right? He has 15 frame launches from standing and crouching. And he has like even a 14 if he needed it, a 12 frame wall splat, a decent 13 while standing. So I was like, he's the perfect character. But I'm like, I don't know. In Tekken 7, I think a lot of things go into what we were talking about, like safety, like risk reward. Does a character have a 50-50 to make comebacks? Do they have a good rage drive? Do they have throws that can launch? And I think a lot of these things can make the full package of a character now. And I think there's some characters I would say like is like a perfect character. Like they don't need to do anything to him. Like I've been saying Jin's fucking amazing. You know, it's like he can do it. He can do it all. He has like a little bit of everything. You know, like there's some characters I'm just like they're perfect. You know, like their risk rewards are also well designed and stuff like that. Other than the auto block after whipping parry, but it's like
I'd like to throw another question out there. Should every character be tournament viable? Should that be a goal that the Tekken balancing aim to achieve? And Mayman, I want to ask you that one.
Oh, you want to ask me specifically?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I haven't heard you yet.
I don't know. I don't know if every character has to be tournament viable, but I think my guess is that Bandai Namco feel that not every character has to be tournament viable. I think it's something I've thought of like the last week with Eliza, Gigas, these characters where you never ever see buffs. I think they feel if it's one thread of logic I've seen in balancing in Tekken 7 is that they seem to favor in strength what they perceive to be technical characters. Like if you look at season 2 in the top, in my opinion, you had Akuma, Geese, Jin, Steve. It's like not a single one of those characters can be said to be easy to play. I would say it's some of the absolute most technical characters in the game. And I think that's the way we're looking at things. Like, oh, this character is really hard, should be buffed. Calcium and Devil Jin, very hard. Heihachi, buff. Horang, technical, buff him. So like if there's one thread I feel I see, it's that. And that can be contrasted to Tag 2 and Tekken 6, where maybe characters like Lars and Bob, who I felt maybe weren't, super duper hard, but were really strong. So I feel like maybe they want to counter that in a way. So that's maybe why Gigas is not getting buffs, because they perceive him as easy with the 1-2 and down 2 punish. He can easily do a command throw that does 1 million damage. Sure, it doesn't work in high-level play. Everyone's going to break that, but it's obvious that they do not only look at tournament performance, as they said themselves. And it's like when I read Arslan's letter, it says many characters like Eliza and Asuka. Yeah, absolutely. Eliza, when you look at the frames, it's some of the worst frames in the game. But as Murray said on his stream, like, yeah, certainly she doesn't do well in tournaments, but online, she does extremely well. And you know what? A lot of people in the community, they hate 2D. So it's a sensitive topic, and we're afraid to, approach it. We don't want to buff Eliza because absolutely tournament players might love it, but we're going to have this huge chunk of casuals who's going to hate it. So I think it's very sensitive. And I think personally that they feel that not every character should be tournament viable. Like Katarina, notoriously easy character. Obviously not in tournaments, but overall meant to be very easy, obviously, in my eyes. And I think they felt that she shouldn't be winning tournaments.
Well,
that's
what
I think.
Sure. Sorry, I just want to ask this question to Arslan. Do you want to have, because you're the strongest tournament player of this group, do you want all 49 characters to be tournament viable? I mean, do you want to have that load of having to learn 49 matchups? Is that something you'd be interested in? Is that something you want?
Yeah, I think I would be interested in this thing and every character should be tournament viable. And I agree with main man. Maybe, but I think. But how they will buff every character, like but I want to answer your previous question where you asked which moves or which tools should a character
Okay,
have. So
sure.
So I think it depends. At the end, it depends on the player. It depends on you, or it depends on me, that how we carry our character. It depends on our passion towards the character. Yeah, but the main tools should be like down for 1, down for 2, neutral 4. But in this time, it depends on the matchups. I think the most smart player of the time is Nee, because he figured out this thing that the character matchup is the main thing. So you will pick, like he says, if you are playing with Kazumi, so if the opponent plays Streep, so he will have upper hand in the tournament. So I think this approach, everybody in the fighting games is carrying this approach. If he wants to win, he will pick a counter. So yeah, so I don't think. I think so. There should be, every character should be viable in tournament, but I don't know how will they do that. There will always be some matchup, like some cross matchup with the character.
Okay. Yeah. I want to go back to what something that the main man said quickly, is that I actually agree. I think that, when you look at Katarina, she's so easy, man, especially season 1, man. Oh my God. She was a very, very easy character. Risk reward, like I talked about before, 4-4-4, man. That was safe. 4-4 was safe. Like you could throw it out and the risk was very little, but the reward on counter hit was huge, especially with her stomp damage and everything. And they nerfed those things, which I think was correct. So yeah, I think ease of the sort of how easy a character is does play into it. And buffing those characters is very hard to do. I think we spoke about this before, right? With Gigas, it's like it's a fine line. Like if you were to buff Gigas, how would you do it that in a way that would not make the character too overbearing for the majority of Tekken players? Obviously, at the top level, like there's a clear tier list, and they would be able to deal with it. Heck, I mean, Nee's able to deal with Akuma as it was before. He found out Brian was a great matchup in that, and he was able to deal with. That's Nee. How about the rest of the Tekken players? If you bring back season 1 Katarina, if you buff Gigas in a certain way, those are very easy simple characters, I should say, not easy, simple characters. And I think it's kind of hard if you think about it, how you would buff them.
Dinah, you wanted to add something to that?
Yeah. So a lot of the time when we have characters with like a simple and focused game plan, like Gigas, or like, again, I've said this before on other podcasts, that can be a very, very effective tournament character, because tournaments are often about having a simple game plan you can enforce quickly. But even when we say, the tier lists are defined, we can see like great players can change that at a top level. Like I've seen Arslan have very, very like a lot of success both in tournaments and long sets using Kuma, like and this character is considered to be like complete rubbish. Most people would say he's just above like Gigas and a bunch of characters like that. But he has a lot of advantages against characters like Akuma himself. He can punish a lot of his moves quite consistently. He can power crush or jab him out of demon flip very consistently. He's hard to hit with down 3. So a lot of the time, people take the idea that like the tier list is consistent over, it's more consistent at the top level than it can be. But then all it takes is a single strong player to be like, oh yeah, actually like Akuma can, like just regular old Kuma can be really, really frustrating to fight against, because he's just got a very straightforward, strong like game plan, and he's very hard to hit with lows. So yeah, like it's a lot of the time it's not just that, like a lot of the time the strength of a character isn't just how effective they are, but it's also how effective they're perceived to be. If this is why when Kazumi was nerfed, everyone ran away from her. And we've seen this before. We see this happen before with this happened in Tekken 6 and Tekken Tag 2 with Bob. Everyone ran away from Bob in both of those games because he got nerfed from in Bloodline Rebellion and Tekken Tag 2. So in Bloodline, in Tekken 6.0 to BR, he got nerfed horribly. All the Bob players ran away, and then they slowly came back when they realized he was one of the best characters in the game.
Yeah.
In Tag 2, everyone ran away from Bob, and then they came back when he realized he was one of the best characters in the game. So like in season 2 of this, all the top tiers ran away from Kazumi, and then they started to come back when they realized she was still one of the best characters in the game when Arslan started winning with her.
On that note, I want to ask everyone: do you think there are any dark horses on the Tekken 7 roster at the moment that are underexplored? Can everyone give me just like who is a character that you think is underappreciated?
Bob.
Bob? Yeah, he's pretty good. Yeah.
I said Bob as well, actually.
Yeah.
Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Same.
Bob.
Bob.
Yeah, I need to look at the characters.
Yeah, they took the character selection.
Yeah.
I mean, but when you say underappreciated, like
It's a hard
we don't
question.
see them in tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Oh, interesting. Well, Raven, definitely Raven.
because I mean,
Raven.
Tekken 7, for all intents and purposes, is still a very balanced game in its own way, right? So it's, I mean, we're not talking about huge, there's no 10 zeros in the game, right? So like,
Yeah. I think Negan is also a character you never hear anyone talk about, but I think he has a lot of potential.
He's gotten
Negan.
better lately too.
yeah, I definitely agree on Negan as well. I think I've always thought he had a lot more potential than people gave him credit for.
Yeah.
I'd say Heihachi. I think Eliza is actually better than. I think Eliza is a bit better now than people give her credit for.
Yeah, I agree. So as well. I agree.
I agree.
Yeah, and just going back to Arslan's letter too, he mentioned that Eliza doesn't have a good low, but I feel like that's a weird character to look at because she's got like the instant dive kick pressure, which like no other character has, So it's like, yeah, she sacrifices having good lows, but she's got this crazy pressure that she can apply to most people that people can't deal with. I mean, obviously, when you get to like the super high levels, then people are like, oh, okay, fine, I can backdash, I can sidestep it, whatever. But for like 90% of the people playing against Eliza, they're like, what the hell do I do about this? I don't want to have to deal with lows and this instant dive kick.
I think that's a really good point from Rip, actually, because I've noticed people do that a lot. They'll look at their character and they'll directly look at what their character doesn't have that another character does have. They'll never balance it out by looking at what they do have and seeing if that's something that maybe balances out the tier list, because it's always like, well, I don't have a really fast load that knocks down and gives Okizeme a wake up. Like, but maybe not every character is designed to be that way, and I think there's not enough kind of like more of like an outside the house perspective given when analyzing each character.
Yeah.
Yeah. One more thing that, sorry, to capitalize on what Main Man said earlier too, going back to the original question of whether I think all characters should be tournament viable, like just from a spectator experience, I kind of like it that not all of them are like that viable. Like obviously Tekken's a very balanced game, like Ryan said, but when you see Kumo winning the TWT, you're like, what the hell? As a spectator, that's so exciting, right? Yeah. So it's kind of nice to see the underappreciated characters doing well in tournament. And I feel like Tekken is one of the rare games where that can still happen. I feel like there's a lot of other games out there where you're like, you're just not going to see that happen.
No, yeah, that's what I was going to say earlier too. Like when we were talking about characters that are viable, I think that's very subjective, right? After you see a freaking bear winning TWT finals, right? And then I think also there's a couple of like topics being meshed together right now. Like we're talking about character viability in tournaments, and also like where's the balance direction going? They don't care about these small characters. I think there's definitely an obvious favoritism on like what characters they want to touch. Oh, that character's doing well, we're nerfing them, blah blah blah. And then also other characters that I think they themselves, the balance team, wants to show more of or wants to see more of in tournament. Like it's very obvious, like, oh, we want that character to have that, so we could have hype moments for L sweeps tracking and shit.
So the one thing, because we're talking about balancing, I just want to say, like, when it comes to the missions, and that's the hot topic of this patch, right? Of the missions, if you're going to buff, and we spoke about this before as well, like, you don't have to buff their good moves. Electric and Hell Sweep are their good moves. You can buff other moves which are not so good. Like Arslan wrote in his letter, like, just a simple, like a buff to Nina's down forward 1 would go such a long way. So these other fundamental moves, like giving him a longer reaching jab or something, I don't know, or buffing movement, like Mihawk said about Heihachi. Like these other things, there are other options to, if you have this favoritism or you have this thing where you want to see these characters on the stage more, you don't have to buff these moves like Electric and Hellsweep, or the really good moves like Lee, for example. They've made his back four even harder to whiff punish. Now, I think that 6 frames more recovery, something, I don't know. Back four was one of his staple good moves, like, and they buffed it. It's like, you can buff some other moves of Lee if you want to see more of Lee, you know. So I think since we're talking about balance strategy, I think that's what they should focus on more, is the other fundamental moves rather than just buffing things that are already good.
I think that also goes back to I think that also goes back to like us looking at sort of why they're balancing these things that they're balancing, because, you know, depending on what they want, maybe for what they want, it's good what they're balancing. You know, and until we really know, then it's quite hard to give an opinion on that. But then, you know, on the other side, it's kind of like, you know, you have a little bit of speculation that we're moving forward with, where we're semi-guessing that they're waiting for machinists to win and then they'll nerf them. We don't actually know. We just think that this is the direction. But this last balance update looks like they're going in a slightly different direction to all the previous balance updates before that. So just to update us on that new direction, it would be really cool to have a little bit of insight, just the tiniest window into what they're doing here, because the last one has more question marks than any of them, you know, and that would really help with just clarity here, especially when we're trying to talk about it.
Exactly. So I think that's a perfect jumping off point to another topic that we want to discuss on this. So basically, we want to try and answer this question. What are the mistakes that Bandai Namco have made in their recent balancing approach? And if you were an advisor to Bandai Namco, let's put ourselves in those shoes, what would you advise them? And a lot of people have been saying we need more transparency. So hold on. I'd like to just go back to the PDF. Okay. And we'll go back to the other topic later. So, right. This is topic number 3, transparent patch notes. So many players have criticized the Tekken devs for their opaque patch notes. In comparison to other genres such as MOBAs and many other fighting games, even those also developed by Bandai Namco in the case of Soul Calibur 6, Tekken patch notes are comparatively lacking in detail and reasoning. And you can see an example of recent patch notes from Soul Calibur 6, but as well, there's a little paragraph explaining what they're trying to achieve, the effect of each balance change, whether it's a buff or a nerf. Again, I think Killer Instinct is a fantastic example here. They set out their intent and reasoning with this initial paragraph, and then they go through the patch notes. And there are even accompanying videos from Season 3 onwards for Killer Instinct. So the question is, how important is it, do you think, for fighting game developers to justify their balancing choices? And if so, how should the Tekken team change their attitude to patch notes and balancing overall?
I mean, it's tricky because is it okay if I go first? Or?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, okay. Sorry, so I don't want to jump ahead of anyone. I think it's tricky because you want my money. So from that perspective, if I'm a paying customer, I kind of want to know what I'm buying and why you've made it like that. But on the other hand, I want developers to just fill me with confidence. When they produce something, I want them to keep me guessing. It's so exciting. I don't want to know what they're doing. I want them to just thrill me in full suspense. And when it comes out, it's amazing. I mean, look, when I go to a restaurant, I don't jump in the kitchen and tell the chef how to cook my meal. You know, when I go to the theater, I don't tell them how to act. Like, you're deciding to do this. You should know what you're making. Like, how is it that you don't know what you're making? You're making games for the community. Why don't you know the community you're making the game for? Why don't you know what they want, what they need? Why don't you know what's fun? Why do we have to tell you? Like, it's just what I'm saying. Like, I don't tell the chef how to cook the meal. So one problem here is I think a lot of the time when the community get angry, it's because they just don't have any confidence in the developers. And I think that's a problem in and of itself. Like, we should be able to feel confident that they can handle it, that they're going to be able to produce something that everyone enjoys, that has great things that the community need, and that it's a product that everyone can enjoy and want to pay more money for. We can't wait to download the next DLC. We want to have all this stuff. And it should be that kind of thing. But it's very worrying when we give feedback and then in the next patch there are still problems or things haven't been taken care of, or it just looks like we're completely ignored and everyone's infuriated and blah, blah, blah. And that kind of ecosystem has no room for positive growth. So I think not only, in terms of like just, what kind of transparency they have to have in the community, but just having some fortitude in their own establishment and really knowing what's needed. I just think they shouldn't always need feedback. And that's just one thing to add at the beginning of this.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And also not attacking each other from the other end too is also great. And admitting when they make mistakes is fine. We're all human. It's like we may all make mistakes and it's like, okay, we don't have a direction, but it's like, okay, maybe we shouldn't be attacking each other and like, breeding this type of, hostility online towards each other. It's just like nobody's going to get anything that they want in that regard. Yeah.
I just think like the developers said on Twitter, like, we want to hear feedback from you guys. So can you compile changes for your characters, whatever, under the hashtag Tekken 7 Season 3 report, whatever. Well, so a lot of people did that, and so many lists I've seen were like reasonable enough for the characters, but like none of it were applied.
Yeah,
But
no,
I'm not saying that they should be, but
Yeah, and
the effort was made to compile these changes, and then we're just like disregarded completely. And then Dizzle had a dartboard on what changes they want for dartboard for whatever characters. So it's like that's where the frustration comes from. They ask us these things, but then none of it is used. And if we didn't get feedback, we probably might have still pre-patched Leroy. So I think feedback is important. Feedback is important.
I want to ask.
I'm not so sure.
Well, I just want to ask Arslan a quick question. What would you like to see in patch notes? What kind of information would you personally like to see?
As I wrote everything in my letter, what I wanted and what I want to the developers to do in the patch notes. But I think instead of nerfing a top tier characters, okay, it's okay if they have broken moves, nerf that character. But instead of nerfing that character, just buff other characters. Just buff other characters to the point where everybody can play those characters in the tournament. Like I go back to your previous question where you said that every character should be viable in tournaments, because if they do that, then everybody can play their main. If you go back to me when in Tekken 7 or in Tekken 2, people call Knee, Brian's come to their mind, right? But now there's not anymore. Just Knee is a player who plays just random characters. So there is no main character of the player, because the developers are making us to play this way, right? They are making us to pick a top tier character to not win the tournament. There is no character loyalty and nothing. So yeah, I just wrote everything in my letter.
Okay, cool. Does anyone want to add anything to that?
I forgot.
Yeah, Rip. You said there was something on your mind. It was pulsing. I saw.
There was. I mean, I think I hated when they asked the community for feedback. Going back to like Ryan's analogy with the chef in the kitchen. Like why would a chef ask the people in the restaurant, like, how do you want me to cook this? I'm like a grade A chef already, right? But tell me how to cook this. And I'm just like, all right. I mean, and I think that they did have a direction. Like, we don't know what it is because they weren't transparent about that. They don't tell us that, which does suck. I do wish they were more like Killer Instincts or Soul Calibur's development, just like anything where it says like, we feel like, we want to make Mission stronger, and these are the changes. Even if like something like that, like, okay, fine, I get it, right? We feel like Hwoarang is underused online, so we did these changes. Something, right? At least so I could have some kind of idea why they were there. Because when I read the latest patch notes, I felt like I don't understand why these things are here. Right. I can take some guesses at it, but that's all, right? If you go historically back through Tekken, going back to like Tekken 6, whatever, there would be minor updates to the game, and we would never even get patch notes. We'd be like, oh damn, this Tekken 5.1, what is this? I don't know, but look, the tech catches are gone. That's crazy. And then here's DR. It's a massive update. Well, we got Lily and Armor King now, and Dragunov and someone else I don't remember. But like there's also there's extra moves with the characters. We didn't know anything back then, right? So we've gotten from that point now to where they at least tell us here are the changes that we did, and sometimes they still miss some of those, right? Or sometimes they release the patch notes in Wingding's font, and we don't even see what the notations are. And then people want them on top of that to also tell you why in Wingdings. I feel like there's so many things that they're working on that they're not quite there yet, right? But I do think that they're trying. I do wish they were more transparent in their patch notes. I think that was pretty much it.
All right, so Mayman. And then Dino.
I just wanted to add on to what Rip said, but it's a little bit frustrating seeing that Michael Murray on his own stream on Twitch will take questions, and and that Eliza point I made earlier, he will there explain why a certain thing happened in the patch notes and why a certain thing didn't happen. It would be so great if we had that inside of the patch notes. I agree there. But oh god, I'm very old. Alzheimer's. God damn it! I had a great Dinosaur. Go and then I'll jump in.
So I was going to say there is some explanation in the patch notes already, right? Because there's one type of thing where they'll always explain what it is. Well, they will say recovery. They'll say
where Leroy kicked everyone's ass or something like that.
Now they'll say recovery of X move nerf, or recovery reduced by 3 frames to make it easier to land in juggles. That is when they will explain why a move has been changed. They never do it at any other point, but if you look at that at the patch notes, it will always say like Brian's back 2-4 in season 2. They were like back 2-4 recovery change by 5 frames, or to make this more exciting, they would actually have it's not like they're philosophically against explaining things, but they will only do it for the easier stuff, where there's just like to increase the pace of play or to make this easier to land in juggles. Those are the only ways they'll explain it. They don't generally go deeper than that. Even though often, and this was more the case in season 2 than most of the other patches, you could see a rationale behind why things changed. Like I had this conversation with Arya about Miguel's Savage Down Back 3 and Savage 2 synergy, right? Because the Savage 2 started tracking, so you didn't want to have the Savage Down Back 3 forcing crouch. Because then you couldn't you'd get stuck in it on one side in a kind of in a bit of a loop. So I think there are rationales, and they are willing to talk to us about them, but they're historically not like doing this, because I think it's still like a philosophical part of the company that they think that a huge part of the entertainment of fighting games is learning tons and tons of weird stuff on your own. Which it sort of is to some extent, but probably not nearly to the extent that they seem to think it is. It's a kind of Dark Souls thing where they're like, you need to figure this out yourself. If you find it out, if we tell you, it'll break the game somehow. Like, I mentioned this before with frame data. Like before they had clear philosophical objections that they thought frame data would, if everyone knew it, would just solve the game. And I think that they still have a lot of that philosophy in themselves. It's like, you should learn it yourselves. That's the fun of the game.
Fergus, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, just add something. Like we had patch notes where we didn't even know what the changes meant. They would list something, say like a behavior on counter hit change, and you wouldn't know what that is, for example, or advantage decreased by 5, and we're like, okay, does that count for hit? Is that with hit? Well, we don't know. And then there were some style changes as well, like some actually really huge ones. I'll take Xiaoyu, for example. Like Xiaoyu is notoriously weak to her left. Opponent's left, her right.
Right.
But they had a style change to her down 3, which tracks that way now. And that's a huge thing, that because Xiaoyu's flaw is opponent goes left against her, and it makes her a lot of her moves with. But this down 3 changes a lot for her, and that wasn't listed. And that was definitely something huge left out that a Xiaoyu player didn't find for a while.
Dragunov's running 2. Like it literally altered his entire game, and it was never listed in a patch note. That they changed the tracking.
Yeah, they say everything like and clearly, more clearly.
Yeah, so I think Arslan, you said as well that that Kazumi is running 2. You can step hit both sides, but they didn't list that.
Yeah.
Yeah, stealth. That's what I wanted to get at. Stealth nerfs or stealth changes. What are your thoughts on that? Stealth buff, stealth changes. What are your thoughts on that? Rip, go for it.
I'll just say that, they clearly are mistakes. They don't intend for them to be stealth left out, because they included Eddie's up back 1 in the latest patch. Like, to be more in line with this up 1. That is a change that no one needed to know. If you needed anything to be a stealth change, that was the one. You know what I mean? So I'm sure all the other ones are just mistakes.
Oh, man. You think they're just mistakes, though? You don't think any of the stealth changes, they kind of snuck them in, but just neglected to put them on the patch notes?
I think they would have.
No.
I think they would have included in the patch notes. I think that they
Yeah.
just, for whatever reason, their process of putting the thing into the game,
We had
vetting it, and then
wingdings.
finalizing it. Yeah,
We had
but
wingdings.
Yeah, if they were deliberate stealth nerfs and buffs that were put in there for our kind of like suspense for us to discover in our own time. I mean, I think Rip in that example has just established that these are clearly accidents. But if they were deliberately planned out things, that would be actually kind of cool to just have this realm of discovery where it's like, oh my God, this happens. That wasn't in the last version. That would be cool.
Not cool. Not cool.
But the way it is now, that doesn't work. Like, it's just, if you find something, it's probably like something they could have easily listed. It doesn't really change a whole lot, but it's a change, so yeah.
Arslan, Arslan, what are your thoughts on stealth changes?
I agree with Wib. I think they are mistakes. But if you talk about Kazumi to Fawarzu, I think this is not a mistake. I'm confused on this topic. I don't know. Maybe they are intentional or maybe they are mistakes. I don't know.
Mihawk.
Yeah, in that regard, I wanna agree with Arslan because I think not every stealth change that we've seen was a mistake. I remember I've been playing Dragunov since Tekken Tag 2, so I can confidently speak about the character. And his while running 2 his while running 2 now is very different from what it used to be in Season 1. And the reason for that being is that it was constantly nerfed over time in the tracking regard. And I don't remember a single patch note mentioning that the while running 2 got a tracking nerf. All they said is it changed from +5 to +6 on block. And now you can do down forward 1 and it's unsteppable or stuff like that. But it never mentioned, I don't remember at least, that they mentioned that while running 2 got a tracking nerf. Same as with Kazumi. So I'm thinking that there are some moves that they find very bothersome for certain characters where they feel like they need to change it, but I don't really know the reason why it's not being mentioned.
Yeah. I think they just forget sometimes. I think it's a legitimate accident that they just forget to list the changes. I mean, it's like Harada on Twitter that mentioned about the 14-frame escape for Far Kumram's grab, for example.
Yeah.
All right. Dino, Rip.
Really quick.
Rip, go for it.
Okay, yeah, I was just going to say really quick that when I said mistake, I meant that the mistake was them leaving it out of the patch note.
Yeah.
Not the mistake that was in the game.
Yeah, because we've seen discrepancies between Western and Japanese patch notes. Like in the last go round, like Geese had like 3 or 4 reasonably significant changes, which were in the Japanese notes and weren't in the Western ones. Even after they were non-wingdingized, and and it's impossible to think that like they didn't mean to make these changes, because some of the stealth changes have been to absolute key top 5 moves for characters. Like the Dragunov change, can't stress it enough, totally changes that character, and they never mentioned it. The Claudio hop kick change, we had to talk about this in Season 3. Because people were how did they increase the range of Claudio's hop kick? That's insane. And we had to explain they reduced the range of his hop kick back in Season 1, and in Season 2, and then they've just brought it back. Yeah. His 1-2, another one of his top maybe 4 or 5 moves has been changed in this game. So it's not just the patch notes are a completely bizarre mixture of utterly weird stuff. It'll be Bob's key charge down back 2+3 4/4 string no longer side switches in rage, and you'll be like, I've never heard of that move in my life. and then you'll be like, oh yeah, one of my character's 3 or 4 top best moves just suddenly is working in a completely different way now.
Yeah. So here's a question. Let's put a hypothetical situation out there. Let's say with the recent patch notes, they were super transparent and they said, we just want to see more Mishimas in tournaments. We want to see more Harangs. We want to see more cool technical characters. Do you think the reception to these patch notes would have been significantly different from the community?
No.
No.
I think you kind of ignite the fire with stuff like that.
Pouring the gasoline everywhere. All over.
Because you're basically, as a pub dev, what you're doing at that point is you're taking people's money and then you're kind of force feeding them this data, right? You're saying, this is what we're giving you. whether you like it or not. This is why we're doing it, and it's whatever you think about it. It's tough because I think it depends how you distribute that information. Are you distributing it saying, okay, this is what we've done. What do you guys think? You know, is it that, or is it just this is what we've done? Tough. You know, and I think there's two different dynamics you create there.
Right. That's why I think the biggest problem was when they just asked the community for their feedback in the first place, because you can't win at that point. Like, there's always going to be someone who is like, hey, what about my change? They listen to yours, not mine. They did something else, not mine. And it's always going to be that case.
So what should they do? What should Bandai Namco do in future patch notes, if anything? I mean, if they're going to be if they're going to be transparent and it's still not received well, I mean, do you think they should make any changes?
It's okay to be transparent, because that also offers you the chance to be like, because you can be transparent and wrong. Because if they gave us if they released Leroy and they were like, gave explanations for all his moves and they were like, because people seem to really like this character and we want to see him in tons of tournaments. Like, people still would have been justifiably mad at Leroy. So, like, you should be transparent, but being transparent offers the chance. I mean, that's the thing. It does open yourself up to people like saying, hey, this is a bad idea. But it's also something that allows you to have a dialogue about what has happened. But if you're not transparent, you can just kind of hide behind things and you can say, well, just block it. It's a low.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier about, character being viable, all characters being viable, except in the tournament. Like, this is still their game. They still have a vision for it. Like, if they said something like, we don't like, Katarina being the face of Tekken because she's winning all these, TWT events. We don't want Kuma to be the face of Tekken. Like, that's not a change that anyone's going to want to read in the patch notes, right? In terms of being transparent. They're like, yo, I spent so much time learning Katarina or Kuma or whatever, right? So obviously they can't be that forthright, I guess, or that open with everything. But I think that another thing to consider is if you're asking them to be so transparent about everything, any other company that I've seen take this approach where they're more transparent about the changes, when they make a mistake, they have to apologize for it. Kind of be like, we tried this. It wasn't quite what we expected. So we did this now, this next patch. League of Legends they do that all the time. They're like, oh, we wanted to do this. We thought this would help this, but it didn't. So we're reverting this change and going back to this. I would love to see that kind of thing from them, but I can't imagine it actually happening.
Right. Apologies. I think I saw a few hands there. Does anybody want to add anything to that?
Well,
nope.
Yeah, I was kind of talking about a little bit earlier. Like, why did they add the hashtag? Right. I was like, the hashtag is like the biggest mystery. Because like what Fergus was saying earlier, right? And I was just like, because a lot of the stuff that I had problems with, like actual bugs in the game, full crouch input bug, like Brian not being able to crouch dash after sidewalking on 2P or like stuff like that. I'm like, why does like none of this stuff get addressed? And I'm like, what's the whole point of communication if where's the transparency there? What's the whole hashtag for?
I think I heard that from Murray that they received a bunch of feedback, but they all contradicted one another. And here's another question. How much should Bandai Namco or any development team listen to their community? How much should they take that into stock? Or should they just pursue their own vision? Or should it be a balance between these two?
I think what you guys brought up on the last episode, you guys like what Ryan said in the last episode on episode 8, where it was just like, you need like this one focus group to study this, and then you need the next group of people to test this. And I think you need a little bit of checks and balances, not just like, let's just give them everything they want, or let's just not give them anything at all. It's just like, it needs to be a little bit of a balance in terms of the balancing.
Yeah, it's scary though, because there's an issue that there are a lot of people that downplay right now. Like, there's a lot of people downplaying their own characters, and we're still in this constant discovery phase as well. Remember, we didn't even know Akuma was that good until the Pakistani. So like, hello, So like, so we're in this constant discovery phase, and you mentioned as well, how so many of the even people who are Tekken World Tour finalists dropped Kazumi, not thinking that she wasn't good. You said that, right? And then Arslan comes on the scene, and then everyone picks Kazumi again. So like, yes, listening to the community is very important, but I think we need a balance of both, because while the developers can be wrong, so can the community. Yeah, we mustn't forget that.
Hella. I mean, sorry, just really quickly. Shaheen is dead. Anyone remember that tweet? I remember.
Yeah.
tweet.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And, I don't want to like go off on top players too much because but a lot of their opinions are so influential now, right? That people latch onto it and they follow it no matter what. So, Arslan, when you write a letter like this, obviously people can go like, yeah, Eliza. Everyone needs to buff Eliza. That's all they're going to focus on. A lot of the players aren't even, at that level where it even affects them a lot of the time, right? So it's something that happens. And like Spag was saying, a lot of times the community just they're either downplaying or they don't understand enough. They need more discovery time, whatever it may be.
The concept
that's why. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
The concept of having
right.
The concept of having input in a game that's coming out or is out that you can update is great, right? I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I love the idea that I can be involved in the game I'm really passionate about. That's beautiful. But my concern when it's opened up to to players is I just don't know if players can be non-biased. I have the feeling like people always want to have their character buffed. They want their character's weaknesses taken away. And it's never this kind of looking at the forest for the trees kind of perspective where you're seeing this is how we make the game fun, not how my character wins. It needs to be more of a perspective where like, how is it fun for everyone else? It's like, how is the entire game going to be interesting with my character behaving in this way, And I think, but then again, with that said, I mean, the game has 49 characters. Like that's a tall order.
Mihawk, did you want to add something?
I honestly forgot what I wanted to say.
Sorry, it was so long ago.
I tried so many times to raise my hand.
I didn't see it. There's so many people to look at.
You know what it is, man? Your camera is like super bright, so when your hand goes up, it just blends into the background.
No, I think all of the points that you guys had were good and right, and I agree with them. But I think to a certain extent, it's kind of about trying to. Well, it's important, but then at the same time difficult to do, to try to please everyone, which is why I wanted to say, why I wanted to respond. I don't know to who it was. I think to Ryan or to Rit, because someone said, dude, I forgot what it was. Let me think. Doesn't matter. Anyway, I think it would be very good if say from a bad player to a good player, everyone would have a certain way of being able to deal with things in a good way. So talking about Mishimas just for that split second, I think that it's important. I think that it's important that anyone at any level should be able to deal with things that they have, and making it. Arslan raising his hand, and
sorry. Yeah.
I think that what got me thinking in that sense was that I understand that they have their certain vision and they want to do something about it, and they have their idea of putting their game into a certain direction. That's cool and all, but then I think I remember Murray was in one of his streams saying that he thinks sidestep, buffing sidestep is not a good idea, for example, just so beginners would have a big disadvantage. But then at the same time, what gets me wondering is that at the same time they release a character like Zafina or Fakimram that has really good movement, good backdash, good sidestep, where it makes you wonder, where's the consistency in that thing? That's what I was wondering about. I'm thinking there is certain characters that have really good movement and that are able to deal really well with these issues, while other characters, in a sense, are left behind. And I feel like in terms of since Dinosaur was talking earlier about it, the philosophy, what is the philosophy? Is it about us having to, or do they want us to adapt to a strong 50-50 style? Because that's when all the player base needs to adapt towards that, or should we still rely on movement, or should we do this and that? I think this is an important point that is currently lacking. I personally don't know which direction things are currently taking, and therefore it's very difficult for me to know what I should practice right now.
Right.
Do I need to practice sidestep? Do I need to practice backdash? Do I need to get better at my guessing game? Just thinking about that, and yeah.
Arslan, what did you want to add something?
Yeah. So I agree with Spag. So there should be balance, 50% of the developers and 50% of us. So right now I am thinking with the pro player mind. I cannot think like an average player, what average player is thinking, like, or below above average player thinking. But Harada or the game developers should listen to the pro players, as the pro players are, according to me, who have good minds, who have invested their time or dedicated their life towards the gaming, and who discovered new things, and who are known to the world. So everybody respect and everybody know them. So I think they should listen to the pro players, as Nee said some. Let's say Nee said that Devil Jin wants this thing, so they should consider that. I'm not saying they should 100% implement those things, but they should consider those things. So 50% from their side, from 50% from our side.
Guys, do you agree that pro players should have a big hand in balancing? Rip
I think that
Ryan. Yeah, Rip and Ryan.
even before they asked for everyone's opinion, whatever, I feel like they've always been keeping an eye out anyway on the competitive scene and what the pro players were saying. You know, this isn't something that's new, like, oh, now we have a TWT where we have patches, now we have to look at pro players. I feel like they were always doing that, you know, when they were making balanced patches before. And, you know, going back to, you know, my Lohi example, I feel like you can't always trust pro players. You know, like, obviously they can consider it themselves and look at it, but I feel like that's what they've always been doing.
Okay. Ryan.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to answer from the angle of not knowing what they want, because if it was just up to me, yes, I think that's a great idea. These guys spend their lives, like, you know, Arslan was saying, these guys have a wealth of knowledge, each of them, and they all come to the table with different perspectives of the game. So that's a really solid brainstorming session for any developer, right? But on the flip side, if the developer isn't looking for the kind of game that pros will produce, then it doesn't make sense to brainstorm with them, because anything they're going to give you is not where you want to go. So you have to know where you want to go first. Then you decide what your audience is that you share that knowledge with. If you want a game that's accessible for beginners and super easy to play, you don't want a roundtable with pro players, because that's not the game you're going to end up with. So I think it's about knowing what you want and then getting the audience that supports that angle.
Yeah,
Because,
I think
just
direction.
Yeah, I think this is where we come full circle back to the big word, transparency.
Yeah,
Right.
but
Sorry,
let me just say,
Spag.
I think that's the issue, because just to sum it up, if they were to be more transparent on the general direction that they want to go in, then we as the community would be in a better position to give feedback, instead of them not telling us and then asking us to give suggestions. We're giving suggestions based on nothing. We don't have a foundation upon which to work. If we know, okay, this is what we want, this is the general direction we want to go towards, then we'd be in a better position. Like Mihawk said, like, do they want a game which is more 50-50 heavy? Do they, you know, what do they actually want? What is the vision? If we know the vision, then the community will actually be in a better position to give suggestions, whether it be pro players or not.
Yeah, I think that, like, if I could just add one little thing, I think this all kind of ties into like a couple things that we're saying. We're saying, like, first off, we need direction from them and where they want to go with it, and then we could all follow along or tell us what they want, right? And then also direction, transparency, and also just like where are we going? Where's the ride? What are we going for? Like, yeah.
That's why I think that it's been such a big issue this time. Like recently with people asking, because I don't think it was this crazy before, with people saying, "Oh, we want transparency," because we were actually able to look at patch notes and be like, "That makes sense." You know, Katarina, you know, 444s. Is sometimes, you know, a lot of changes. You used to be like, "Okay, I understand why." You know, I mean, not 100%, but like, okay, I get why this character's been nerfed. I get why this change has happened. But this time it's like, okay, it just seems random. I'm not saying it is. It just seems random, and like, what? Especially because something like the mission was such a staple thing that's been for such a long time, and it's like, why would they do that? And nobody had an answer, so that's why everyone's asking now for transparency.
Yeah, and I think
MYK.
we're just seeing a lot more now, because it's like kind of like dry season with the whole pandemic going on in the world. Maybe they're just testing the waters out even more, because it's like there's no world tour right now. So I don't know, maybe a little bit of that too. But I also agree a lot on what Arslan said, like the 4 to 6 month buffer, you know, just to see how this patch works out, you know, just to see, you know, the discovery phase. We still don't know a lot about characters. There might be some like hidden underdog characters that could be winning tournaments that we just haven't given a chance yet to. You know.
Ryan?
Yeah, just quickly. I mean, you know, anyone that's put any amount of time into Tekken will already know that Mishimas are extremely technical characters. And generally on games, when people decide from a voluntary base to pick up on a technical character, it's because they like things that are complex and difficult. They don't want the easy way out. They don't want the brainless 50-50. They from that massive, ginormous roster, they've gone to this small planet of technical. You know, why are they there? They're there because they want a challenge. They want it to be difficult to do things. They want the struggle, if you will. Okay, they enjoy the grind, and I feel like it just suggests that you kind of don't know your base of players if you're giving these kind of characters those kinds of buffs. Like this is not what people who play those characters want, and from a perspective of balancing the game, this is not what those characters need. So from either angle, the changes just don't really add up.
Yeah, I saw your tweet, Ryan, from November, where you showed the mind game behind what you were doing with Kazuya, and you did a wave dash to realign with your opponent's sidewalk and did while standing 1-2 to beat the sidewalk left, and it was like, wow, that was so sick. But now you can just help, you know, and it's like, I get, you know, so for you, you're like,
and that's the thing, you know, I often worry, or I often wonder, you know, just in my own little crazy world I live in, if maybe they don't give us transparency because they're concerned that they will deter some players, you know, they will deter some of their demographic. You know, once we learn that this is where they're going, it's like, oh, well, that's not for me. I'm going to run over and play XY game over there. Or, you know, so I don't know. I have no, you know, factual evidence on that. But sometimes I wonder if maybe that's why. And, you know, if that is why, then sometimes these changes do make sense, actually, because like, well, you're kind of just throwing, you know, things out there. You're not really sure. It's just like an idea. And that's also kind of worrying as well, where there doesn't seem to be an angle on where you want to go, but there doesn't seem to be a strong backbone in what you're doing either, you know? And it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Yeah. I have to follow up on you, Ryan, real quick. You know, you just said that if you're a Mishima player, you know, you pick these characters because they're technical, they're hard to use, etc. I love that, right? That makes total sense. So I was thinking, why would they do this then? I was like, maybe total shot in the dark. What if they did this just to, because they didn't see new people playing Mishimas anymore. And they were like, maybe this will create an uptick in Mishima players. And then later on, we'll patch it out. Because I don't think they intend to release Leroy the way they did either. And I think they intended to patch him later. So it's the kind of the same idea, maybe with the Mishimas here. That total shot in the dark. I don't know anything. I'm just saying, you know. But that would kind of make sense, right?
It's possible, for Tekken 8.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, they had the Leroy patch notes typed up before they had like two, I think it was 2 balanced patch notes prepared before the character was even released, already typed out, written up, ready to go. So I don't know how fast forward, you know, I don't know how much they fast forwarded these, the current balance update, if they already had that ready to go, like way before. But yeah, it definitely looks like they release things with this perspective of we're going to do this and we're going to analyze and we're going to look at how the community responds to this, and then we're going to release, you know, phase 2. We're going into Operation 2 after this, and then this happens.
Yeah.
I want to ask a question actually to Main Man. What do you think was the idea behind buffing the Mishimas? Was it to make them more present in tournaments, or was it to make them easier? Or both?
I think they want to see them more in tournaments. I think a tracking hell sweep doesn't affect beginner and intermediate too much because people don't generally step Mishimas in those levels of play. So I think this absolutely hits high level play very hard, competitive play. You can't step hell sweeps anymore. And I think, Devil Jin's going to be a fucking monster now. I think they want to see them more in tournaments. And I think they've actually re-evaluated the hell sweep. If you look at Leroy or Leo or more modern hell sweeps, they usually track very well to both sides. So I feel like maybe they feel that the Mishima hell sweep, this legacy thing, we should, modernize it. We have super moves in Tekken 7, in my opinion, like King's Ford 41, like these moves that do everything. So I think they're sort of modernizing the hell sweep. And Michael Murray, as he pointed out on Twitter, I think he legitimately feels that, well, if you just block it, the risk reward is still skewed towards the Mishima, especially Kazi. I mean, it gets 30 plus damage. Great Oki, but he still gets killed if it's blocked. And absolutely, I'm against it. I think I want Mishimas to be sophisticated, but I feel they've modernized the hell sweep and they feel this is the way to go. You shouldn't be able to step it because it's still so risky. It can get blocked and you die if it's blocked. So I think maybe that's the way.
MYK?
Yeah, I mean, I like what Maynard just said. Modernizing hell sweeps across the board. Like Leroy has a tracking hell sweep. I think that was already an issue to begin with. But like for me, as not a Kazuya main and as a spectator and like someone that appreciates Mishima style play, right? See the hype, see the waivus, right? I think you're kind of taking away an art from these Mishima players. You know, like I think one of the most beautiful things to see from a Kazuya player, in my opinion, in high level play, is them doing wavu, and then they know you're gonna step, so they do an instant while standing too. And I'm just like,
beautiful.
And it's launch punishable, so they're also like risking something, you know, if they block it. I'm just like, that's fucking amazing. That was the greatest play ever. Oh my god, like I live for those moments. But now they're just simplified that to just hell sweep, bro, or just block. Bro.
Then I just want to say that I completely agree. I hate this. You know, I love Mishimas. But, you know, looking at Tekken 7, it's like, is this the first time something's been dumbed down? I just look at the modern hop kicks and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Compared to Armor King's hop kick. And as I said on the last podcast, Asuka's forward 3, King's forward 1, Devil Jin's old up forward 4 into back 4. Like, what the fuck is that? But the game is full of this dumb shit. Look at Paul. Look at fucking Akuma. Look at Geese. Oh, standing to 100 damage. Oh, there's a wall.
Giant win buttons. Yeah.
The whole game is fucking ridiculous. So like, a hell sweep tracks. Wow, I'm not too impressed anymore. Tekken 7 is just, it's Tekken 7.
Sorry to interrupt.
Can we all
Fergus.
just take a vote here?
Yeah, sure. That's a good idea.
Just to add on.
Okay. I just want to ask Fergus,
Yeah, no, I'll just say quick anyway. So, like with my character, like the biggest change I don't like, even as an Asuka player, I don't like the sidestep 2 change because this is supposed to be in the face of mid that was flat, and like some Asuka players complain that she doesn't have anything natural to punish like jabs or down forward 1 from a sidestep, so she needs sidestep 2 for this case. But like, you know, we came from older Tekkens. Like I think everyone here came from older Tekkens, so like we know how moods were like before.
Yeah.
So with Tekken 17, like just amplified moods for no reason, for the most case, no reason, and then you just can't ask yourself like, is this needed? Is this necessary? And then like Asuka 4-3 I think is a great example. When it high crushed, it was just ridiculous.
High crushed, can't launch a safe.
It did everything. Like even I said, like when I read the changes, I was like, is this real? Like,
is this real?
I'm the TWG champion.
I can't believe it. Like, I think it's because I have an older mindset from Taito. So like, because the newer Oscars are like, yes, sidestep 2 is fine, but they're so used to how stupid Tekken 7 is that this move is just another Tekken 7 move. So I think we definitely have a different perspective than newer generation players.
Yeah, for sure. Rip, what was the vote?
Oh, I was gonna say, like, does anybody here like the hell sweep change? No, I feel like if we voted out, everyone would say no, revert the change, right?
Chat, I just want to see what the chat's going to say.
Well balanced. Yeah, it was already.
No, definitely not, never, no. Everyone says no.
Yeah, and going back to what MainMan was saying about modernizing it to keep up with these other hell sweeps like Leroy's, etc. I'd like to see all those other ones get reverted too. I don't like the tracking on any of them.
That's what I've been saying.
So here's the question.
Now, I agree with you, but they are going in the way of simplifying Tekken. It's super obvious. Restrict movement.
I agree.
Poking, aggressive, heavy game, and moves where you don't have to choose A, B, or C. I'll just do this move that does everything all the time.
Yes.
Oh, I don't need to think of sidestep left because I have a hell sweep now that tracks. It's just this.
Yeah.
So minimize the option selection.
I'd like to ask I'd like to ask a question. So we've talked about this before on this podcast, that Tekken has become too complex and too intimidating for new players. So we've all agreed that it needs to be modernized, simplified, however you want to put it, in some way. But I think we all agree that this is not the way it should be done. So if you want to modernize, let's use that as the word. If you want to modernize Tekken or bring it to a new audience, what would you do? No tracking hell sweeps. What do you think should be done to make Tekken more palatable to newer players, or should that even be done?
I think that it comes down to being able to teach people the game in the correct way. Otherwise, it can be very hard for a player to commit to the game when they're losing to things and they don't understand why they're losing.
That's what I was going to say.
I made the point of when Leffen was streaming. Yeah, we understand it was a crazy time when you were streaming, but I told him something which, you know, he was like, what the hell? Like he played Kazumi, right? And he was like, why am I getting hit when I'm sidestepping? And I said to him, it's because you expand your hurt box and when you're pressing buttons. So what you should do is you should sidestep, you should confirm a whiff, then punish. And he immediately did it and it worked. And he said, I wouldn't have been able to find this out if you didn't tell me. And like, I don't want to have a coach to have to get this game. I want to be able to learn this game. And I think that's the issue. I think if anything, it's just teaching the game.
Ryan.
Yeah, it's something that I covered on the last one. If you guys haven't checked it out, Wavedash 8. Anyway, I think that, you know, it's really about how you take the player by the hand and walk them through the game. It just, whatever you're learning in life, whether it's a sport, anything, you know, I mean, at some point there has to be markers that teach you how to get from A to Z. And Tekken doesn't do that for you. And Tekken is a mammoth of a project to try and learn by yourself. I mean, just going through a character's command list takes however long, right? If you really want to understand how each move works, that could be an entire day just on one character, one command list, and you still don't even know how to play a match against someone else, you know, or anything, or how to even use those moves. So I think they haven't appreciated what size, you know, the wealth of data that's in this game, and kind of really broken down a format of how to give that to new players in a digestible, bite-sized format.
Dinosaur.
I mean, there's a couple of things to think about, which is that firstly, like the increasing the amount of options which cover multiple angles that the main man mentioned. This was sort of really started in Tekken 6. This was really the game where you started to have stuff like Lars Upward 3 or sort of, you know, a big launch, hard read launches and stuff. And mostly, like, a lot of it would be hard for the Tekken developers to look at a game and then say, this is something that, this has been a bad choice for us. Because, you know, Tekken 7 has, you know, it has rage arts, which are the literal, you know, this is the literal hard read button. It is, you know, that's what should be written on the rage art button, just hard read time. And this has worked super well. Tekken 7 is really popular. But it's also hard to say that, like, from our perspective, that stuff isn't being lost. I mean, I think there have been things which have been added to the game which actively detract from it as a competitive and an enjoyable experience, and they make things much more of a bumpy hill than it necessarily has to be. There's lots of things which don't make really any sense, and they're just there because they're there. Like, why does Eddie's slippery kicks have a unique block animation? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, you're going to play your character and you can launch every sweep with this particular move. You'd be like, oh yeah, Eddie's slippery kicks is actually slightly different to all the rest. It's not like Nina's, and it's not like Hell Sweep, and it's not like this other one. Yeah, your while standing move is just going to miss here, and you'll have to find something completely different for it. So there's a lot of things that are there because they're just there. There's a lot of kind of types of strings which or types of moves which I just don't think have really benefited the game much. I don't think it's ever really particularly great to have a knockdown sweep with decent range that tracks to both sides. Like, I don't think this actually is ever really particularly fun, unless it's maybe from a stance. I've never really liked high mid jab strings. I don't think they add much to the game. If you teach people, like, here's jabs, you can duck them, and then Jin's going to come along and he's just going to go 2-1 like this, or Geese is going to do 1-2. And you're just going to be like, oh yeah, can I sidestep the Geese 1-2 then? He's going to be like, no. Okay, what is after then? Oh, he's got a follow-up after it. I was like, can I press buttons after the follow-up then? No, the follow-up's plus on block. You're like, all right, man. So there's I don't think the like super crushing hop kicks and all the other things like that, I never really felt like they added much to the game. Like, they've never really made the game particularly better in any way. So I mean, there's a few things there. Like, one, we have to recognize that simplifying things has worked from a commercial standpoint. Two, we have to recognize. I think there's a lot of stuff that's still in the game that's just in the game because, like, Devil Jin's up 4. I've said since that move was introduced, it should have Hell Sweep block stagger. If you block it, he instantly goes into some stagger animation. You just launch him. And Like there's like classes of moves that they've added into the game, and they will then like be followed by others like them. You know, tracking hell sweeps, high mid jab strings, launchers which go through everything. And once they go in, people start getting more and more of them, and it sort of gets normalized. It becomes modernized, as the main man said. And often, I think they should recognize that sometimes these things aren't actually great additions. Like, but anyway, my 2 cents.
Yeah. Fergus, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think one of the more important things they need to address is to help like new people stay with Tekken and play Tekken is fix the netcode. Because if I was to, let's say someone came from their fighting game, so they have like a basic understanding of fighting games, and I'll tell them, okay, this hop kick is -13. You can punish with this 13 frame that you have, right? But then I would say next, okay, but it's probably going to be difficult online, so I would use a weaker punish instead. And then how are you supposed to learn the game that way? Like, I know when I was trying Grand Blue, for example, I was labbing one character's move, and then said, oh, I can punish with this move. And then the guy in chat said, yeah, okay, but online you might want to use this instead, because you might not be able to use the punish that you're supposed to use. So it's difficult for, like, good netcode really makes smarter games nowadays. That's why I see so many people flocking to Killer Instinct right now, because it has rollback netcode, because they want to try the game, because whatever they want to do, they can do online, because the netcode allows them to. So like it makes learning the game easier, because you're able to utilize what you've learned in practice mode in matches in online, especially nowadays, because we obviously can't go to locals at the moment. So I think netcode definitely helps new people coming in.
Rip.
Yeah, I forgot what the original question was. So something about normalizing Tekken. Sorry, yeah. So you're asking if how we would try to make the game simpler and easier, more accessible for new players, etc. I think Tekken 7 kind of nailed it already. You know, they made throws easier to break. They made the Oki system way simplified, right? So you don't get like a back roll catch super easy anymore.
Yep.
The rage arts are there, etc. Right? But like going back to what's back, I think they just need to add like something to teach the game, because that Leffen thing was crazy. Like, I mean, Leffen was just refusing to learn at some point because he didn't even know you could tech roll when you hit the ground. You know, so but then again, the game didn't tell him that anywhere. So how was he supposed to know, right? So there was a lot to be learned, and none of it was easily accessible. So yeah, I think that's the biggest problem. I think the game's already in a good place.
I just want to ask a question. Sorry, MYK, we'll get to you in a sec, but I just want to ask a question. Going back to Dino's point, I can think of a couple of dozen little exceptions to the general rule in Tekken. There must be hundreds, possibly even thousands. Is it even feasible for them to fix this at this point without just starting afresh? I mean, like I think, trying to think this from a developer perspective, you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because fans want their characters back, and they want all their movesets back, and if this particular move or this particular character isn't back, they're going to be upset. So what do you hack out? What do you streamline? And
you make a clone character that's missing.
Go for it, Rip.
No, I was gonna make a stupid joke. I was gonna say you make a clone character that has half the moves, like they did with Forest Law and Tekken Tag 2. Because he lost the DSS, but he got Law's back 1-2-1, which Law had lost previously. And he had a bunch of other core movesets. And I think that's, for me personally, that's not fun, right? Like Forest Law had half the moveset of Martial Law. He had some cool stuff like the back 1-2-1, but overall, I enjoyed Martial way better because he still had the stance transition. He was a much more technical character, et cetera, et cetera. So if they go that route, I'm out. That's what I see. If they go a route of simplifying everyone and starting over.
MYK.
Yeah, I think this has been very general, and I think from the last question that we were talking about, like a lot of the things are like, let's cater to new players, but then also it's like we've been doing that for every fighting game across the board for everything, right? And it's just like we've seen some work out, like a lot of times, like when you do that though, it kind of upsets the veteran players. I think like not just like gameplay balance wise, but they also need some quality of life changes, like what Fergus was saying, like the online net code. If it's not good, we're not playing. It's just like that's just how it is nowadays too. It's not just the gameplay. I think the gameplay definitely needs work. Yeah, we cater to new players, but we give them a great tutorial, right? We get them up to speed, and then after that, it's like then we can have a real discussion. But right now, we're like talking about like, let's keep catering to new players. It's like there needs to be a point that there needs to be a balance in that too. where they have to. They're still catering to new players, which like Rip said, I think they did a great job already in Tekken 7, and also like keeping the veterans happy too. Like have a good net play. Don't like every patch not making online net play worse for some reason, or like giving us like better lobbies or like other features that other games have, like a Wi-Fi indicator or like stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone add anything to that?
I think the community is literally screaming these major points here, and it's like it's the same conversation everywhere. And it's netcode, the condition of online play. It's what's the punishment for rage quitters? It's it's like understanding of the balance patches and why is the game starting to function in this way and that way, and these are always ongoing issues no matter what changes. No matter what balance patch comes out, it seems that these are always ongoing issues that never get any attention at all. And I mean, no matter what kind of tutorial they dish out, no matter how amazing and profound it is, if you can't deliver that in your online experience, then it's kind of a wasted opportunity in itself, right? I think some attention definitely needs to be put into that direction. But yeah, in terms of one of the earlier questions about like, what they can do to help the game just be more Tekken as we recognize it from when we first started playing the game. I think a good game should have variety in all situations. Okay. Now, the only time you shouldn't have the same variety in your options is if the other guy has done something to earn a different scenario. But it shouldn't be this kind of instant lockdown. Like from round one go, I can lock you down in a Hell Suite scenario. Like that is not something that is going to be conducive to a productive, positive experience in a game, especially when you're playing on the internet. It needs to be something where the risk reward can feel earned, that when someone hits you, you can appreciate that they hit you because of what they had to do to get the hit, and that it wasn't this automatic situation that the game presented them with that they could take advantage of. So I just think in the presentation of how the game functions, from the very, very foundation of the meta, that needs to be looked at when a move is buffed or nerfed or changed in any way. It needs to be addressed how is this experience fun now? What have we done here to increase how enjoyable this scenario will be, this 50-50 or whatever? I just think that needs some attention.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, the thing is, like, we've been talking about all the things that we think are problems and what we think should change. Like, I still think Tekken is a sick game. I think it's and we can't forget that. Like, there's a lot of negativity now, I know, but like, and I made a tweet as well, which I ended up deleting because it just made it look like I was saying Tekken was bad. Tekken is not bad. Tekken is, in my opinion, the best fighting game out there. But I just kind of I felt like people were kind of ignoring the issues, and there are issues, right? So, like we spoke about, getting potentially a tutorial in there, which can really help people learn the game on a deep level, because there's so many deep things about Tekken that you'll just find out, randomly. But not only that, but like the online, we spoke about getting the netcode better. I'm not going to speak about netcode because I don't really know much about it, but like things like adding longevity when you have right now, like you can get Tekken God Prime in a single day, some players, and it's like, it's not fun. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's really, I feel like if they were to add seasons or something, like the rank seasons or a point system like other games have done, I think that would really help to make the game more fun for people to wake up in the morning and say, hey, I'm gonna go for the grind. I remember Tekken Tag 2, watching streams, used to be, oh, this person's deathmatching this person, man. Oh, let's go watch it. And because it was, the ranks meant something. Do you know what I meant? Like, it used to be really fun, just like watching people do death matches and stuff. And now that everyone's Tekken God Prime, everyone and their dog is definitely Tekken God Prime. It's like, well, it's not fun anymore, And what am I grinding towards? What am I working towards? So I think if they were to and I think it's been exasperated because of this situation as well, this Corona situation, everyone at home. So we're playing online. But I think that would really help, man, because I do remember, I'm gonna sound like a boomer, but I remember Tekken Tag 2 days, man. Like, it was fun. Watching streams.
I remember back.
Yeah, back in my day.
Back in my day.
Back in my day, yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things. Like, Tekken is a great game, and we can't forget that. You know what I mean? I felt like even myself, I started to forget as well. But like, Tekken 7 is still a sick game. So don't forget it. But there are things. Of course, there are issues. And if they get fixed, online is one of them. I think if they were to add seasons or points or something, maybe change the rank system how it was before with the rank progression bar, Because right now, when they made the change, it was like you can go even with someone, win, loss, and then still get a promotion at the end, because you get more points for winning than losing. I think there are certain changes they can make there that will make the game a lot more fun for people generally. And that's the majority of players are going to play online. They're not going to be going to tournaments. They're not going to be traveling to different countries, playing offline. So that's.
Rip, did you want to add
like
something?
For some people.
Sorry.
No, yeah,
If you want to go first, sorry, go.
Yeah.
No, sorry. On the same thread, there's just so many things about that. Like they could have rank decay, which we were talking about, where if you don't play the game, your rank starts automatically decaying. Like that exists in other rank systems. That's a thing. Yeah, it forces people to keep playing the game, right? It keeps your player base up. Other things like just the lobby system is so busted right now, right? Like you can't skip if you're in a lobby. We've been trying to run online tournaments for Wednesday night fights. And it's such a pain because you have to wait for the person to pass the streamer, etc. Like, just let us say no on our turn. Let us invite people who aren't our friends on Steam. There's just so many lobby issues with the game that are super frustrating. The rank system that Spag was talking about, just like spot on. Like so many issues that could be addressed to make people want to play and grind for the game.
So Fergus, then Arslan.
You go first, man. I forgot what I was going to say.
Sorry. Arslan, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I have 2 points on this. My first point is that they should remove the high damage combo. Like they should remove Akuma's big damage combos in the game, so the game become more balanced, right? Geese has also very good damage combo. Also, Paul in Rage, he has a very good damage. So I think they should remove these type of things which are very, which are actually nonsense.
Yeah, nonsense,
Massive nonsense, bro.
Yeah,
I agree.
And also, the thing is that if we're generally talking about Tekken, I think they should. I think this is not possible, but I wish there should be a best of 5 in tournaments. If we do this, the more people and the more sponsors will send their players to different tournaments, because we're traveling from, let's say, Pakistan to America just to play best of 3. It's so hard to win best of 3 if you are good players. Anybody can beat you in best of 3. So it should be best of 5. So if you are a good player, if you are playing game 24 hours a day, and so there should be best of 5 from early to in grand finals. I think if they do that, there will be more sponsors who send their players to tournaments. People will go to tournament. I think they are my 2 points.
I wanted to ask, is best of 5 even feasible? I mean, perhaps is that even a thing is it practical to do best of 5?
It's
possible.
Ryan.
I work at a lot of large-scale Counter-Strike events and Dota events, and a single map on Counter-Strike can take. I mean, if it goes into like triple OT or something, it could take an hour and a half, 2 hours. I mean, like really, and these events are done with like a break in between. There are technical pauses. Like they are managing to create these gaming environments for professional teams and players. And one map is like 16 rounds, and we're like having issues to have a game that's just 2 rounds in a best of 5 format. Like it's really just about planning and organizing the time so that the schedule for the tournament can allow for such a program. Obviously, in games like Counter-Strike, it's not 500 teams or something, right? Like, like thousands and thousands of players, obviously. But I'm saying there is a format that could allow for a different, a different structure. Whether you can do it at something like an EVO or a massive TWT event, I'm not sure. But you can definitely do best of 5 at some tournaments.
Rip.
I was going to say, just what Ryan was saying, like, those events are usually invitational events, right? Or you have like a pro circuit where there's only 16 teams in it or something, where it's very limited. And that's the problem with most fighting game events, is that they're open bracket. You have to limit it to say, I'm only going to take 128 players in here or something like that, and maybe give pro players priority or something if you wanted to do best of 5 the whole way through. The tournaments that I've been to, like Dama Germany last year, where it was best of 5 the whole way through. That was sick. Like I enjoyed that as a player, right?
That's European standards.
Yeah. Right. And but then, and I understand that, right? As a player, best of 5 is a better format, right? Like you have more chances to show that you're the better player of the set, right? But I feel like when we go back to Tag 2, maybe it was just Tag 2, but those matches were so long that best of 5 sucked and nobody liked watching it. it really, I mean, like if you go back and just
Yeah,
watch like
you're
the Evo top 8, it wasn't fun to watch, and the spectators dropped off like crazy because of it.
Mihawk.
But that might have just been Tag 2 specific.
It could have been, yeah, it could have been tag 2. I mean, like Fergus said,
So-
the best of 3 was a tournament standard here in and round robin pools as well. Yeah, and we had only the best in Italy. That was
Ultimate
last
tournament in France as well.
Ultimate tournament. Yeah, so we best of 3 is capable. I don't know about the
Best of
logistics
5.
for the bigger events like Evo and Common Break and all these, like if they would be able to do it. I think they could, when there's a will, there's a way. But I quickly want to talk about the first point that Arslan made as well, about the rage drives and all the nonsense, yeah? Like, just imagine this, yeah? You're at the wall, Paul has rage, he does the rage drive death fist at you, and now you're in a 50-50. You guessed right, you're in a 50-50 again. And it's like, I was just thinking that a simple change for that, because remember we spoke about risk reward before. Just make the rage drive death fist minus. Like they have Kazumi's rage drive is minus on block. People actually don't know that, but her rage drive is actually minus. So if you block that at the wall, then you have advantage. I think if you make the right read, you shouldn't get punished for it. So that's what I would say is nonsense as what Arslan.
That's
sorry.
what I joke about too.
Can I pause 1 second? Mihawk wanted to say something.
no, go for
So, go for it.
Hey, shout out to the chat first for taking my side, guys. I love you. No, I wanted to say that I just wanted to react to Rip's point that he said he felt that the Tag 2 matches felt so long because it wasn't the game. It was definitely the game. I mean, each round had 80 seconds. You had 2 characters. Your life was charging up back again when you tagged out. So technically, the whole round, the whole set took way longer than it does in Tekken 7. In Tekken 7, your life doesn't charge back. You have 60 seconds. It's definitely more doable in this game as compared to Tag 2, but it would be still difficult if you have too many entrants. That's all I want to say, pretty much.
Yeah, I agree.
MYK?
Oh, all I was gonna say is like that's kind of the joke that I've been saying. It's like whenever Paul is like what Spag was saying, is like whenever Paul's in red, it's like, oh, it doesn't matter how much of a life lead you had. Paul's technically in the lead now.
Yeah.
Just hits one silly down forward 2 into rage art cancel. It's like, well, GG.
Why is that still there?
Yeah.
What is that?
It's been 3 seasons. Get rid of it.
Well, making games more volatile seems to be a common trend in fighting games. I mean, this is something that Street Fighter V has been criticized of a lot. And I actually want to throw this out to the Street Fighter players as well, Ryan in particular. I mean, what do you think of this trend in fighting games towards volatility?
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. So we have to also bear in mind that like tournaments and professional fighting gaming didn't begin with Tekken World Tour or with Capcom Pro Tour or with any of these, world tours that we have now. And it's great we have them. It's amazing, right? So we have come from a background of being accustomed to getting best of 5 in top 64, getting best of 5 in top 128 and so on. So having that now restricted to, right, everything's best of 3 and then we're just going to do best of 5 for winners finals, losers finals and grand finals. That seems like an unnecessary change for players that are super climatized to this best of 5 format throughout the larger area of the bracket. So no, we don't need to have best of 5 for 5,000 players. No, but for top XY, we could accommodate that. And the reason we know we could accommodate that is because we've been doing that for 20 years already. It's definitely, something that comes from upper management in terms of how these tours are structured. It's definitely something that doesn't come from the players, because every tweet I've ever seen always says, that set was hype. Daigo versus Tokido, that was awesome. That should have been best of 5. JDCR versus me, man, I wanted best of 5. Give me another game. What does Tasty Steve want? He wants another game. I want to see a bracket reset. I want more matches. This is hype. This is what we've come for. If we're not in the match and it's 2 players we enjoyed watching, we just want more because it's so good. So restricting everything to best of 3 with so many animals in the tour, so many beastly players, like you just don't get enough of certain quality matches.
Spag.
Yeah, can I just say, can I just say that when I was in Italy this year for Bode's tournament, the amount of 3-match comebacks I have, not just in Tekken Tag 2 and other games, I have seen so many 3-match comebacks and they are really hype. And I agree with you, Ryan, that we don't have to accommodate first to 3 for everyone, but I mean, rewarding the top 8 for a first to get to have first to 3, and that people who get top 8 at these majors are going to be sick players. They're going to be really good. The mind games are going to be deep. I would love that personally, but I want to ask you, Ryan, what would you, as a player and as a commentator, and Ripper, I can ask you this as well, like, obviously as the player you'd want to do the first 3, but as a spectator and a commentator, which one would you prefer?
I'll just go first quickly.
Yeah.
So as a player, yeah, of course, best of 5, like Arslan said. As a professional player, this is what you're doing for your living. This is what you're doing every day. Having more matches is like having a more balanced roster where you just basically create a larger ocean for you to swim in. You know, that's all that is, which is great, right? That's what you want. I understand that from a spectator perspective, it can be quite draining. You know, it can be quite exhausting to go through a lengthy bracket where every set is best of 5, and then, you know, there'll be a few matches you don't even care about, but you still got to sit through it because, you know, this is part of the tournament. So it can get this kind of super drawn out feeling. As a commentator, I feel like if it's hype play, that we have a lot we can talk about, if there's backstory, if there are things we can kind of tune in, we can help the audience tune in with, then it's super hype, right? Super interesting. But you know, I guess you do run the risk that it will be this bracket of players that are, for the most part, not really cared about. It can happen. And you're just waiting for the 1 or 2 matches, you know, which are basically the reasons you tuned into the stream. Right. So, yeah, I think it's quite difficult. But if you're running a professional tour, by the time it whittles down to like top 8, you usually have the players that people have come to see. By that point, you usually do.
Dino.
I just wanted to say that, like, also one thing about first to 2 and so on is that it can be fun for the spectators, just because, you know, it means they can keep up with the narrative of the tournament because it actually runs past pretty quickly. So unlike I think one of the big benefits of Tekken 7 again is, you know, it has sold well, but it's also I think that this is the first real Tekken that has been a streaming success. It's the first one where people are literally like tuning into it and excited to watch it. So I think, you know, it should be important that you value that. The other thing is about first to 2s and about volatility in general. Volatility is a balancing factor. If everything is nuts and crazy, you are more likely to have a balanced game. So a first, right. I mean, that's not correct. Opposite. You're not more likely to have a more balanced game. You're more likely to have balanced outcomes because mad stuff can happen. So like a lot of older games were very unbalanced in their core, but because they were extremely volatile games, you could have lots of different characters winning. So if you take things like Super Turbo or what's the Fist of the North Star game called? Yes. Super unbalanced, like really like pretty super unbalanced games, but they have insane damage. Or you get knocked down and you die instantly. You know, tons of touch to deaths or knockdowns where you die. And so like tons of characters have won those because you only need to make like 2 guesses. If you knock someone down with T-Hawk, you've won. So T-Hawk could win tournaments even though he was the worst character in the game because he instantly killed everyone. So you can balance games like first to 3 is better, and it's better for you as a competitor. I would obviously always want first to 3 for myself, especially because, you know, my character is not a particularly good short set character, but it's also like this helps to balance out the game. Like people have said, Gigas is great for 1 game, and he's all right for 2 games. He ain't winning no 3 games. So like, so you're gonna get so that's the thing. Like first to 2 will get you like more exciting tournament outcomes coming out of the end, because the more games you have, the more the underlying balance of the game, the less volatility you have, the more the underlying balance of the game will assert itself.
You're a genius.
Yeah, that's mind blown. Okay, so let's try and summarize. Oh, sorry, Arslan, go for it.
Arslan.
Yeah. Okay, so if we talk about like Evo, and if they spend a ton of money in organizing Evo, a big tournament, and they organize, let's say, 100 setups, so they can also organize 50 more setups or 100 more setups, to save time or to do this setup or to organize best of 3 systems. So it's easy for them, like if they are organizing this big tournament, so they can organize 50 setups, right? And if you talk about spectators, right? So spectators will come when they see that Knee is coming, or let's say they say West Honey is coming, so we want to see the match between these 2. So yeah, spectator will come only. And the main thing is that the pro players are traveling, right? And then when pro players are traveling, then spectator will come. And if about commentators, like, so they are doing their job, they have time in which they have to commentary, right? So they are doing the same job, right? So they are not doing some extra things and not extra. I don't know too much about commentary thing, but I think this best of 5, if they organize this system, if they introduce this system in the community, then more people and then more players across the world will go and will practice, will be motivated to participate in a tournament, to travel more, so they have more chances. Or not only me, I have more chances. Other thousands of people have more chances to go and to win a tournament. You have seen a lot of cases where many people beat many pro players, right, in best of 2. So yeah, this is my whole point. So if a tournament organizer can organize a big tournament and can money, they can just put different 50 more setups to save time.
But I wonder how much more excited that makes, if that's something that they take into account. Like if someone who's intermediate is able to take out a top player, isn't that exciting? Like I don't want to say any names because I don't want to call anyone intermediate, yeah. But there have been times where Koreans will lose, and people, the hype, that you get from people, when they lose and stuff. Maybe first to 2, I mean, we're still getting consistent results though. Like top 8s are all looking pretty much the same, and or top 16s at least anyway. I'm asking myself, I don't know myself, like what the viewer would they want the first to 2 all the way up to top 3, or would they want top 3? First to 3 for top 8.
Rip.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, to Arslan's point, like I don't think that more players would travel if it's first to 3. I feel like, say me, like I don't compete as seriously anymore, right? But I have a much better chance of beating someone first to 2 now than having first to 3. So if you're my level or below, you want first to 2. You don't want first to 3 because you can random someone out easier at that set. If it's first to 3, then you're going to lose to a better player more often, which obviously no pro player wants to hear, but it's the reality of the situation, right?
I think I am the only pro player in this podcast. Oh no, Fergus. I want to ask you what you think about this.
I just think like obviously like first to 3 helps a lot, but definitely in the top 3 too. But sorry, my PC's acting up a little bit.
We can hear you, don't worry.
Yeah, no, I'm okay. Okay, no. It's just I agree with first to 3 should be a thing, but definitely only in the top 32 or 16, because for pools, like, with respect to every player, like it's not really exciting to see 2 lower level players go Ash. But definitely so maybe make those matches shorter, sure. But like any pro player will make it out pools. Like they should be able to be consistently making out pools. And in the top 3 too, it should definitely be first to 3, just because the damage difference. Some characters do too much. Some characters forces you into mix-ups way too much. Like Spag said, the Paul Rage drive against the wall. Like you made the right choice in blocking it, but you're still in a mix-up situation. So there's little things like there's just like, and the biggest thing from previous games to Tekken 7 is the flip over Oki system. So basically, there's a lot of stuff in this game. Yeah, I don't like it at all, because there's so much that gives you a free hit into a flip over move, and then you're forced into an instant mix up situation afterwards. So that definitely lowers, like smallens the skill gap between players, because normally in previous games, if you want to be relatively safe, you'll just take a hit on the ground and then get up and reset to neutral. That would be the case in getting up safely in Oki situations. But in this game, like you eat this hit on the ground, you eat it for free, sometimes for free, for guaranteed after some moves, and then you're back into the same situation again. So it's scarier to make these defensive decisions in a shorter set, for sure.
Ryan, you want to add something? Oh, sorry.
Ryan just, and regarding the rage drive thing. Just 2 things, and then So the rage drive thing. So I mean, apart from the Kazumi example that Spag gave earlier, I mean, for the most part, everyone kind of has that, right? Like it's fair in the fact that everyone can do that. Everyone can activate their rage drive. If it's blocked, then they go for something else, or they have the chance to go for something else because the frames are in their favor. So that isn't, like necessarily a bad thing by itself. But it's an interesting point what Arslan said, that companies and corporations are not confident to back pro players because in a first to 2 format, pro players can't show the consistency that would make them feel confident enough to sponsor them. That's actually an interesting point that I haven't heard anyone mention yet. I didn't know that. I didn't even know that was a thing, you know. But if that is a thing, then that creates another interesting talking point from a higher perspective of business, because at the end of the day, you know, you want companies like flowing money back into the ecosystem of Tekken, right? You know, you want that to flourish. I don't know if you guys all know about this, but is that a thing? Like companies not getting involved in Tekken because it's a shorter format?
Well, I guess what they would do is like not pick up players who otherwise would be consistent in tournament and show results. You know, because they're losing in first to twos. I personally would love to see top 8s be first to 3, because first the pro players that make it into top 8, the players that make it into top 8 would mostly want that that sort of first to 3. I think it's like you're almost rewarding them for it, and the viewers get rewarded because they get to see more games with these top players as well. I just think top 8 would be cool, but then you can go to top 16, top 32. I don't know, but that's my opinion.
At least
Arslan.
top 8, at least.
Yeah, no, that's I was just
sorry.
something really quick.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just maybe top 8, top 16. Like, yeah, like where's the cutoff point? Like maybe not top 32. First to 3 might be too much. Top 16, maybe top 8. Yeah.
Arslan.
Yeah. So, what's the name? What's your name? Who won the Guinness book record?
Wait, what?
Ryan, sorry, Ryan Hart. Okay, so
Right,
Ryan
right,
covered,
yeah.
Ryan. Yeah. he covered most of my talk. So also I remember, there are many people. There are some companies in Pakistan, like they want to send some players across to different tournaments, and I remember when I go to first tournament, I had too much pressure on myself because I want to play best of 3 tournaments. And there are still many companies and still many unsponsored players. Why are you laughing?
Sorry, no. The chat. Arslan, nothing to do with you.
Sorry.
Apologize for my rude.
I
Let's get out our system. All right. Go for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I still think that the risk is very high in best of 3 set, because if you consider my case, I just lend money from my friends and family. I just went to tournament, and the risk was so high. And even there are companies that ask their players, maybe Spag don't know, they ask their players, if you perform, we send you this tournament. If you perform well, then we'll send you again to other tournaments. You know, there were too much pressure on the player. So yeah, these are also 2 points where there should be best of 5, so the player will be more relaxed than in mental stress.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
true.
I
I
think
actually know. I know some contracts of some players. I'm not going to name them, but like that, it's contingent upon them actually doing well, and it's a lot of stress. So,
Yeah, I definitely know in Street Fighter there are some contracts where if they don't make top 8, they literally don't get paid. If you don't make top 8 this month, you're not getting a salary. So I know it's really cutthroat for
If
some
they
of these
have best of
companies,
5, then
of some of
there's
these
more
players.
chances for them to make top 8.
Yeah, which is really hardcore actually. But it goes back to what Phil said. As a player, you always want to have, as a professional player at least, you always would want to have best of 5 if you can.
Still sound like wax sponsors, by the way. Sorry, that's all.
yeah.
Yeah, that sounds pretty bad, right?
Yeah, it is. But that's reality, man.
I know.
Yeah.
Just have to be careful with your sign off, or like read everything.
Yeah.
Guys, let's try to summarize some of the points we've made, and then if you have time, one more topic. So we all agree that maybe first to 5, maybe at top of the bracket, might lead to more interesting tournaments and more equitable tournaments. Does anyone disagree with that?
No, I think I was going to say that, if you want to actually roll this out in like a limited part of the tournament, then I think top 8 at master events is like the most doable. Because it's something that you'd have to require other tournament organizers to do. So I think that's like not too much of a strain on all the other tournament organizers. So I think that's probably like most likely reasonable to happen. I think even like asking all the challenge events to force a top 8 to be first to 3 is kind of rough for them. So I don't know. But I think that top 8 masters should be doable, and you probably have higher competition there. So overall, it's like it's not really a loss.
Yeah.
Okay. Phil, your mic's off.
Sorry. One caveat to the more equitable tournaments is first of three, I think it also does work against character specialists very slightly, just because it favors you can win. The less sets you have, the more likely you are to be able to win a bad matchup, because you could get like a few good ground or juggle opportunities or whatever. But if you have in a the longer the set goes, the more exaggerated matchups are. That's why we say that they're 10-8, or sorry, that's why when we say they're like 8-2 or 6-4 or whatever. We consider them over a course of 10 matches. The more matches you have, the worse matchups become. So it does. I think everyone would want first to three, but it does slightly favor the sort of knee method of counterpicking and having like a selection of high tier characters. So that's one small caveat. But I think everyone would prefer first to three, especially me.
Okay. All right. So just to round up these points, first to five for more equitable and fair tournaments. I think we all want better netcode, like rollback. I think that's a given. We've talked about it a million times. Tutorials. Does anyone disagree with that? Right. Transparency and patch notes. Maybe that's not all important because maybe the reception from the community might not all be that different, but I think it would at least increase goodwill with the community.
I think we said that more of a general direction, more of a transparency on the general direction, so that we're more in a better position to be able to help.
So we're at least on the same ride together, same train or something.
Yeah. So there's a conversation.
One more thing. Yeah, one more thing about that I didn't mention earlier. Tekken now has become kind of like software as a service where it's expected to change every year. And in the past, it was always kind of like, here's the game and we'll make minor changes to it. Whereas now with season 3, I thought we were kind of done and, we were going to be minor changes. Instead, they're like, here's a bunch of new changes for you guys to explore. And I was like, oh, damn, they're going to really try to change the game every season now. Mm-hmm. So, there was an article that Flying Wonky put up on avoidingtheparticle.com with this interview with Hart. It's super long. I only got like halfway through it. Mm-hmm. But at one part, he talked about how it's so hard for the development team to stay on one title for so long. Like they're used to, switching to making a whole new game, whatever. Like that personally, they feel like, oh, look, I shipped Tekken 7. Now I'm shipping Tekken 8, whatever. Instead, they're like, I shipped Tekken 7. And I'm still working on it. So it's hard to maintain enthusiasm in that kind of environment. He's talking about the struggles they have in doing that. So it's just really interesting when you think about the aspect of that patch and how those have gone. And season 3 now, we're still in the middle of it. So the change that people are kind of wanting in terms of big changes, like I wasn't expecting big change from this patch, but I feel like everyone else was. So it wasn't much of a surprise to me when there wasn't a drastic change, but I feel like everyone else was expecting, that list of changes they gave to Murray from before to come through. Whereas I think that that's something that's more likely to happen in a season 4 update.
Yeah. Quick show of hands. Would you all prefer to see a Tekken 8 or a season 4? Who wants to see Tekken 8?
I mean, I do. I want both. I want both.
It's a hard question to answer unless I know what Tekken 8 got in it.
Yeah, new Tekken games are really bad. This is worth remembering.
Actually, Phil, you made a chart about this. I want to bring this up actually on the screen. Hold on. Yeah,
I can't see it, by the way. I can't.
Yeah,
but then if they
no
have
worries.
season 4,
well,
I don't want more characters either.
Yeah,
I'm tired of characters, man.
Just stages.
Vanilla 7.
Anything like new, something new.
Vanilla 7.0, by the way, I'm not sure many have played it, but that was had a lot of issues in it. And as you said, Phil, all new Tekken games have a lot of jank in them. I'm having PTSD flashbacks to Shaheen's 4-1, which jailed something stupid like -2 on block. Claudio's back one, as amazing as it is now, was a counter hit launcher in all sorts of stuff.
I forgot about old Claudio. I made a whole video about that.
Oh, I remember that. But the thing is,
they've nerfed Kazumi's down forward 1 like 4 times.
Mm-hmm. It's still good.
It's super good.
Oh yeah,
Akuma like 8 to 10 times. Yes.
Yeah,
oh my god, Akuma.
Counter hit 4 into down forward 1 used to be like her counter hit 4 combo, and you're like, how did that work? But it does. So Tekken 7 Vanilla was super bad. 6.0 was also pretty bad, like especially the first version of 6.0 that we got. So
5.0 too.
yeah, it's worth
Yeah.
remembering that like when a new Tekken comes out, even if they don't do the whole thing where they just have a sort of, they basically use the arcades as a beta test for it. If that happens, people are going to be mad because they're not playing it.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, they're going to be mad because it's going to suck.
You
Yeah.
guys remember Warong's Unblockable as a tag team
course.
filler?
I remember that, yeah.
I did like 90%. Like, what the
Yeah.
hell?
I mean, another thing about Tekken 8, so many people out there are saying, yeah, I'm done with Tekken 7. Give me Tekken 8. I'm like, you realize it's the same development team that you're like, I don't like when these guys are going to the game. All right, give me Tekken 8. I'm like, who do you think is going to make it? It's going to be the same dude.
I just want a good net code, man. That's I just want a good net code.
I agree. I want that too. I was thinking, like, in terms of netcode, like, what if PlayStation 5 had a complete edition of Tekken 7 with better netcode? Like, I'm down for that.
Oh yeah.
That'd be good, yeah. I would love a Steam Porsche tag too. I actually would kill for that.
Oh my god, that's going backwards, bro. Let's just go forwards.
I want tag to again, man. Of course, we're going forward, yeah.
I think Tekken 7 has a lot of potential. I don't think we necessarily need a Tekken 8, right? Tekken 7 could be great if they just change a few things. I mean, Tekken 7 is already a great game, but obviously there are a few things up in the air right now, and I don't think we in a situation where we desperately need a Tekken 8 right now. I don't think it's necessary.
I think that part of what that chart by Dinosaur illustrates is how little Tekken 7 has actually changed since the console release. So the question is, all this negativity recently, how much of it is just the community being really bitchy?
I mean, it's also just boredom. I mean, because the game, not necessarily boredom, but like the game hasn't changed a lot for a while. Like, and most of the changes recently have been negative or weird. Like season 1 to season 2 is easily the most like exciting change. It changed a lot of things. Nothing's really changed much since then. So I think it's just the fact that people have been stuck with their grievances that they probably had since the beginning, and they haven't really gone away. Like, and then that's just it's just every game has a lifespan, and I think Tekken hasn't reached the end of it, but it's definitely at least it's in middle age.
I think it's a matter of this is the kind of the final topic we're going to discuss today, but it's really the straw that broke the camel's back, because it's been a few months of what the community perceives as questionable choices, and I think what started off was the frame data debacle. That was like kind of one strike, and then there's Leroy, and I think Leroy, as you mentioned previously, Mayman on the previous podcast, that was like something that really destroyed quite a bit of goodwill with the community. And then since then, I mean, currently, I put this up on the PDF. I just want to bring it up because it's a tweet you made, Main Man. Currently, Michael Murray is kind of the focal point of all this attention, and he's kind of become the center of a witch hunt. And so just to read out your tweet, I think painting Murray as the face of everything perceived as bad in Tekken is not very productive, especially in the context of balance changes where I'm pretty sure he doesn't have the final word. Stop the witch hunt, please, and talk more about Tekken devs rather than Murray. And by the way, this tweet, I don't want to throw Wonky under the bus either. I think he does really great work in collating and spreading information as well. That's just coincidence. But yeah, I think Murray was kind of on the receiving end. And his tweet was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. So here's the question. What can Bandai Namco do to kind of modernize the relationship between themselves and their community? Because clearly, at the moment, Michael Murray is sort of the vis-a-vis community manager, and that hasn't really worked out. So what do you guys think about Murray in general, and how he's handled this situation? How could he have handled it better, and what should he and the whole Tekken team do in the future from here on out? Mayman, since you made the tweet, I'll throw it to you.
No, the whole thing is kind of a clusterfuck. I just want to dial it back and say that, yes, I feel like the Leroy mishap is the only real like epic shit stain on Tekken 7's CV, I would say. I feel like all these balance changes, I feel to them it's good. I can't say that they're wrong, because I feel like this community has been wrong many times, like with Akuma, like for 2.5 years, you know, everyone's saying like he's mid-tier, inconsistent, too difficult to play. I mean, even Nee was saying that. And then and Ricksta's the only one playing him in tournaments, and everyone's like, look at that brave lad, you know, playing like, he gave a hand to Ricksta, you know, and then turns out he's playing like this demonic, overpowered, super busted character. You know, it's like we fucked up so many times, and like, oh, Steve is dead, season 3 nerf. Like, no, he's still a fucking god.
Yeah.
So it's like, does the community have right all the time? And please show some respect to the developers who've made like this incredible game. It's like we take it for granted, but if you really break it down now, like all of the characters, how they intertwine, the different play styles, the depth, it really is incredible. And I love Fakum Ram, and I see so little approval on Twitter, and it's a little bit sad. I feel like after Leroy, we are trapped in this very negative mindset where we smell blood, and I feel like ever since Leroy, no matter what they do, I feel like the community is really gonna be out to vocal some very negative thoughts. And I feel like Murray is not smooth at all. But yeah, people forget that he's not a community manager. He's the main producer of a game, and he's actually taking time to take in what fans think of everything, and absolutely not in a smooth or perfect way. Someone else should be doing that. But I feel like people are too often, you kind of forget that when thousands of people shit on one guy, you know, and you see his face, you know his name, it's no easy thing being in that position, and it's extremely counterproductive. And I mean, if I was Murray, I know he said on his stream, like, I don't even want to release patch notes anymore in my name, because all I get is just a shitstorm. So I can see where he is coming from there. But yeah, in my opinion, we should get a professional community manager. I don't know if it would end, this feeling of mistrust between the community and the developers. But I don't know. It's a very complicated situation, I guess.
It's really crazy, because this isn't the first time this has happened. I think what happens very often is that people are looking for someone to blame, right? And it just because he's the face of Tekken at the moment, people are choosing to attack him. And I think it's sad because people are kind of either forgetting or just don't know how much he's done for Tekken, and that's what really upset me when I saw this. So I wasn't even really using. I took a little bit of a break from Twitter while I was seeing this, and it kind of upset me. I saw some YouTube comments. I'm like, these people are shitting on his life's work, like all the stuff he's done. They're ignoring. They don't even know all the stuff that this guy has done. But they're gonna say, yo, ruin Tekken, yeah, this and that. Like it must get to you. Like Main Man said, bro. Like if you got thousands of people shitting on you every day, it's like that's gonna affect you. And yeah, he hasn't said the smartest things on Twitter, the tweets he made, and that's what people are attacking me, saying Spag, but he tweeted this, he tweeted that. It's like, give him a break, man. Like shit. And I'll tell you, like back pre-release Tekken 7, we were shitting on the Bandai Namco UK community manager Edwin, and that guy's a saint, and he's done a lot for Tekken. He's done a lot, but people just because they didn't know the ins and outs of the company and what was going on within Namco in the UK, they didn't even know that he wasn't even responsible for so much of and he wanted to change a lot of things. So like, what if I questioned some people. I said, what if like this wasn't his fault at all? What if he tried to get other changes, or just, I don't know, like there's so much we don't know. But and I think that to attack someone when you don't have the whole story is kind of sad, actually.
Yeah.
Ryan, I can see you talking, but I can't hear any audio.
So this is exactly what we had happen with Street Fighter as well, where people said, we need a community manager that knows the scene, that knows the game, someone we can trust. And Capcom hired, they had a Peter Rosas, Combo Fiend, who's one of the most historically prolific 2D gamers that's ever come out of that country. But as soon as he arrived in that position, he was just stuck between a rock and a hard place because he's obviously having these kind of orders handed down to him. This is what you need to tell the community, and he's trying to give that to the community in a way that they can accept, but nothing is acceptable. I mean, if at the end of the day, once you're giving the community things that they don't agree with, it doesn't matter who that information is coming from. They'll just strike. They'll just jump on and pounce and attack. And that really ruined part of, Combo Fiend's persona online. People were just like, oh, he's the guy that ruins it. This historical player from the US. And it really wasn't fair because at the end of the day, he's not responsible for these changes, and it's just that old classic line of "Don't shoot the messenger."
Yeah, but can you imagine having that job? You towards the Tekken community, like, have to track now.
Oh god,
that's not an easy job to hold down.
Guns start coming out. Like,
start doing Matrix and everything. Yeah, that's not an easy job, especially if you're not in charge of things that happen. If you have zero jurisdiction, it's just a suicide mission.
Yeah.
Just my point was just like you don't know all the facts.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Maybe he is like 100% responsible, but I don't think he is. But we don't know all the facts, man. Like, we've done this before. Like,
I think this is that word again. It's transparency. It's that word again. We need that. That's what it comes down to. Are you responsible for these things? Can we talk to you? Are you able to make decisions, or is this just a waste of time? That transparency needs to be laid out.
Yeah.
And
counterproductive as well. It's very
I think.
Yeah. No. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I mean, one thing I gotta say though is also like, yeah, he's the face. He's gonna take all the slack if something does, shit hits the fan or whatever, right? But also at the same time, I think also, responding with the Roach Motel like tweet and like deliberately attacking like the people responding to you is like sometimes not saying anything could be the right answer. Just let it all cool down and
I agree with you, but that's the same criticism people would level at, Harada himself, because every once in a while he would do a retweet against someone trolling him and he'd go, fuck you, shut the hell up, fuck you. He'd do one of those. And you'd think like, that's not a very good thing to do in your position, Harada. But the thing is, he gets thousands of those, like every single day. And when you see him respond like that, it's because the 1001, gets to him, and he has to unload all of that built up frustration. So when Murray tweets like Roach Hotel, it's because he's been super fucking frustrated for months, getting swamped by people saying, "Oh, you fucking suck. Harada was better. Fuck you. Eliza, tits." No, but that's the way it is. I'm nowhere near those guys, but I know what that feeling's like, and I get it all the time. Twitch chat, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. You can keep a straight face for a while, but it builds up, man. It builds up. And it's the same, I know he reads like Tekken Reddit. I went to Tekken Reddit days after this start, and I was like, just thread after thread with Photoshop, derp pictures of Murray writing horrible things, and the fans, saying, "Hey, he's a fucking bitch, idiot." I'm like, I wouldn't feel too thrilled working in that environment, but it's like the positive voices are so easily drowned out on the internet. It's like there's a huge negativity bias on Twitter and everything.
But yeah, as thing is, I believe that it's very hard to, that the negative is always going to be louder than even from us. Like, I'm on a way lesser degree. People say very positive things about me, but then those few negative things, those will stick with you. And when I remember 2017 Paris Regionals, I actually spoke to Murray and I was like, we spoke about about Twitter and stuff like that, and responding to, I asked him, I said, man, you get so much shit, man, like, and how do you deal with it? And he goes, look, there's been so many times when me and Harada are writing a tweet to someone, and then we just say, okay, hang on, and they just delete it. I'm not gonna do it. And there's many. He said that's what in many situations we've learned to deal with it, but man, it's tough, and we are not in his position. Like I said, we all get hate sometimes, but on the way that Murray's getting it now, we ain't been in this position. We don't know how it feels like. Maybe if we were in his position, we'd be tweeting way more dumb shit. Like, I'm just saying, like, I'm not trying to defend his tweets or nothing like that, but it's like, bruv, just have a bit of empathy, a little bit of empathy. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things I noticed, I made a tweet separate, which I did not expect to get as much traction, that got all crazy. But sometimes people will see the tweet and they don't kind of correlate with what the original idea behind it was. So like when Murray tweeted out the Roach Motel thing, I saw some people making YouTube videos about how he's like, look, Fergus was in this thread. He's calling Fergus a roach. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not at all what he meant. I'm pretty sure he's targeting all the other assholes and dickheads in the thread. You know what I mean? Like, put it together. That's all.
This job is difficult when a guy has an entire quote dedicated to, like, he has a t-shirt that is basically outlining the degree of frustration that he's had to put up with for all this time. That says everything in itself.
The thing is, they're still putting themselves out there, which says a lot, because most developers don't do that. Most developers don't have such a personal relationship with their fan base. The fact that Harada's even replying to you speaks to his passion and love for the game.
And then there are some, we all know, bro, there are some annoying people in the community. Sorry, even I just want to say quickly, like, even I got pissed off. I got vexed when I saw Harada make a tweet about I think a voice actor or someone that passed away. He's like, rest in peace. He's like, rest in peace, and then someone was like, where's Zafina? Stupid bitch. I'm like, really? On that tweet? So I made it. So I was like, I'm pissed off.
I remember that.
He didn't say nothing. Yeah,
I remember him.
Harada didn't say nothing. Credit to him, innit? But I got pissed off. I got vexed. So I'm just saying that, that's why because I think about all these things. I'm like, man, if I was in his position, if I was in his shoes, how would I be,
Zafina players, man.
You've got people coming in with feedback that are like coming in with. You've got people that are coming in with feedback that are coming with really professional tones. They're coming with actual issues that the game has that have been ongoing for a while, and they really want attention on these areas. But then you've got a guy who's bought the game, week one or day one or whatever, who's like, flowing with negativity on Reddit. I mean, Reddit can literally, like, everyone who's been on Reddit knows that Reddit can literally just be cancerous. It's just it can be one of the worst places to collect information from the community on. But it can also be a really good place to collect information. So it's, it's a really difficult balance there. But when you see how these people talk about, the game and how they see Harada and Mari, it's just really unfair. And it's hard for these guys to get information from the community because it's coming from so many sources. It's coming from the pros who know like literally everything about the game. It's coming from people who've developed other games as well. There are devs in there that come with their angle of development and what the game should be like. There are people that just picked the game up week one, bought it on Steam, on sale, whatever, and they're coming in with their angle. So they have a super difficult job, and I don't think that's ever appreciated, what they are actually going through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, lack of empathy, like not putting themselves in their shoes, totally. Just blind, like, not blind, but just a lot of frustration, I think.
And again, who do you listen to in that conversation? It's so difficult to know who's right, wrong, what you take in, what you take out.
Yeah.
So guys, thank you so much. I think it's been close to 2 hours and 40 minutes. I want to ask, how's everyone doing for time?
Bro, I ain't going out, innit? I'm chilling.
It's all day.
Man. That's it for me.
I'm
kind of
got out of here.
Unfortunately, sorry about that. But yeah,
no worries.
Yeah,
man.
I gotta
no
go.
Worries, man.
I gotta go and cook.
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
Yeah. All right. Arslan, Dinosaur, Mainman, thank you so much for your time. As always, it's a pleasure, an honor.
Thank you so much for inviting.
No, not at all. It's a real pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks
great
so much.
job.
Yeah, take care, guys.
Sorry.
Yeah,
great job, Aria, by the way, summoning all of these people. Like,
yes.
The coordination skills
man.
are incredible as always. And it's a pleasure talking to everyone here.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was great to
conversation.
meet Arslan for the first time, even if it was just digitally. I hope we can play the tournament sometime. And all the rest of you, it was great to see you again.
Yeah, you too,
man. Take care.
Hey, guys. I just want to play Tekken.
Take care.
Later, guys.
See ya. Guys, I can keep going. Do you guys want to keep going?
What are we talking about?
It's a good question.
I don't have too long. I do have to shoot off in a bit, but I can stick around for a little while, maybe one or two more topics.
I think we've kind of gone through all the topics, so I'm going to throw it to you guys. Is there anything you want to bring up? Is there anything that's really been on your mind about the recent patch, about the community? I could throw it to the chat.
I just want to say quickly that, like I said before, I made a mistake with I made a tweet and I deleted it. But what I wanted to really get across was if there are problems with the game, don't hide it, because there are some people like as soon as the Hell Sweep got buffed, it was like, oh, the game is fine now. You know what I mean? It's like, no, you had problems with the game before, and now so it got me kind of angry, and it hasn't been a great month as well. So it's like I was a bit but the wording of my tweet was very terrible. It made the game look bad. I wasn't saying the game is bad though, and that's what I really want to say. Like, the game, we have to remember, it is sick. It's a sick game. Tekken 7. We've been in such terrible positions before, like in Tekken Tag 2, we didn't even think it would get on Evo, like on the main stage at all. We've been in that position, but now it's like we've shot up to number 1, and I feel like Tekken is the best game out there right now. But I think the passion you're seeing from some people, it's just because they want to see the game be as best as it could be. That's it.
Like it just comes from love for the game. That's it. It's just frustration that we want the game to be the best it can be, and that just comes from a place of love, I think.
Yeah. I think everybody definitely agrees in that regard. I mean, like, the stuff that even I'm asking for is just like bug fixes, like all the Tekken 7 season 3 reports that I've been using for like full crouch instant bug. Whenever you wall break, why does it sometimes flip the inputs, and like, just wonky stuff that they could fix, online net code, net play, all that stuff. Rage quitters, punishing them, stuff like that. It's just like all stuff to make a streamlined product that everybody can just be happy with. But that's something I've always said too. Bigger the community, the more negative vocal community you're gonna have as well with it. And I think we're definitely at that age now. And as you guys were saying earlier, like Tekken 7 is not in its infancy anymore. I feel like we're right now at the teenager years. Honestly, like
adolescent years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
No, and that's why I made that tweet about the Steam charts thing, right? And a lot of people misinterpreted what I meant by it. But like, basically, I was trying to say that, there's so much negativity in the scene right now when the game itself is still sick. And I didn't understand it, right? And so that was all I was trying to get across, and again, I'm not a Namco shill. I'm not paid by Namco. You would not believe the number of people, like I said, like, I actually don't work for Namco. They're like, I don't believe you. I'm like, really? Like, I just told you. But that's all it was, right? I was seeing all these people complain about, game is trash, why my character didn't get passed, etc. And I was just like, dude, I heard literally all of those things. I'll walk you through. Literally the night before, I had seen all of those things, and then MYK texted me that Steam chart thing, totally unrelated. And I was like, why am I seeing all this when Tekken is like doing so well? And I was like, I don't understand. So I just tweeted as it was. This was kind of like my Murray Roach motel in a way, because it was just a tweet. I didn't expect it to gain a lot of traction or anything, but people were like, why can't people have criticism about the game? I'm like, I actually didn't say that anywhere in there at all.
But that's the inference that people make, unfortunately.
That's what I mean. That's how Twitter is for a lot of people.
I mean,
exactly
100 times.
One thing about the Steam chart, like I think that and it's super great. Like, sold 5 million copies, and it's good to see that it's on the up on Steam. I think one complaint that I hear a lot from people on Facebook and Twitter is that they go into rank match and that they can't get an opponent. And it's something I've also talked about recently too. But how is it that this game is on the up, financially and in the number of units being sold, but somehow these people are not translating into online opponents? And that's also an issue in itself as well. It kind of tells you, yes, the game is successful, people are buying it, but at some point they get into the game, and at some point, they either quit because they realize it's too hard, or there isn't enough of a tutorial to help them, so they're like kind of fall off somewhere. But it's such a shame, isn't it? Like, this game is working, it's selling, people want to be involved in the scene, but then you've got a guy somewhere in the world sitting for half an hour in the rank match lobby waiting to get a game. So that is. And
sorry, really quick, Ryan. These charts, they're not sales numbers. They're actually the active player base.
Oh, is it? Okay, yeah.
And so Tekken, out of fighting games, was the #1 active player game.
Oh, okay.
So it actually, I don't know why they're not showing up in ranked or whatnot, but it's just showing that people are playing the game actively. It's the #1 in terms of size. Yeah, exactly. So maybe it's spread out across the world in different regions. Maybe some regions are huge. I don't know.
I guess it would come down to the algorithm that put those statistics together, whether it was put together based on how many hours a player spent when they went online, or
it's like unique players per day or something. So it could be even different unique players per day. that like 1,000 today, 1,000 tomorrow, they're completely different people or whatever,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
the numbers are like, you have to read through. The guy who posted it has the full information on it, but
So
it
that's
is actually a
interesting.
player-based number.
So it's interesting is that people are not actually sticking with the game, somehow. They're playing it, it's putting in a certain amount of timing, and then it kind of fades away, and they go back to FIFA or Call of Duty or something.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, honestly, like
sorry, can I just want to say one thing? That's the thing with Twitter is that it's so hard to express your full opinion because it's only 240 characters. So I kind of called out Rip on that tweet, and then right after we had a little chat on Messenger, and turns out we completely pretty much agree with each other on everything.
Crazy,
Yeah.
But it's,
and I think that's my fault, but still. I mean, I forgot what Eric used to say. Something I'm really bad at remembering old quotes. Something, but something like, if you put the message out there, then it's up to you to make sure the message is correct. Essentially, it's not up to the person how they interpret it. It's about how you sent it out in the first place so that they interpret it correctly.
Also, what Eric says, we're all just a bunch of ESLs.
Yeah.
That's all it is, man. English is hard. Language is hard sometimes.
Confirmation bias is a real thing, though. I mean, you see what you want to see in these tweets, and you infer it how you want
definitely.
to. Yeah.
I got a lot of hate. I felt like I was Michael Murray for a day. That was crazy.
Or like some people that are reading certain things, they just have like selective reading, and they're just like, "Oh my god, how dare he say that?" Like, I'm gonna go in on him for that,
He said, "Meanwhile."
The scary thing about social media is people will generally flock towards the argument that fits. Like, they'll flock towards the argument that suits what they already believe. They'll have an opinion already when they come in, and they'll look for the ones that counter that, and they'll argue with those. Even if those arguments could be perfectly fine, they'll just kind of find a problem with it and then get involved that way. Social media is a weird place, especially because when it's all in text form, it's so hard to read context sometimes. You just don't know how they mean it.
Yeah, you got to be very thorough. Sometimes it's not going to be you can't put it all in one tweet, I wasn't trying to say the game was bad at all, but that's how my tweet came across. That's why I deleted it. I'm like, nah, because I read it again and I was like, shit, man, this is a terrible tweet. But yeah, the thing to remember is that the game is sick and there are problems. No game is perfect. The problem with some people that were like, the game's good, and they're like, oh, you're a shill. It's like, no, we agree that there are problems, but remember the game is, you know what I mean? So,
yeah,
it's so black
even
and
with
white.
the problems, it's still good. Yeah.
Yeah. But of course, the problems should be addressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think most issues just like the balance realistically doesn't affect that many people. It'll affect like maybe 5%, 10% of the Tekken player base, like the tournament players. But like I think the main thing is that netcode. It definitely is the netcode for me. Because for me personally, I haven't played much in the last 5 or 6 months. Because I don't want to just boot up the game, then line up in ranked, and then I run into someone, then I can't really play because the netcode limits how I can play.
It's the worst for you though, Fergus, because you play Asuka. So if you miss a 2-3 punish, you're dead.
I need my punishment to be on point. But obviously she has her own online stuff, like every character does. But it's just not fun. Like, it's just not fun not being able to play the game properly. And I think it's worse for streamers as well. Definitely worse for streamers.
I remember going to an offline tournament and missing everything, and I couldn't understand why. This is like really in the early days of DR when we first started getting used to playing online, and I just couldn't do anything offline. That was a weird phenomenon.
Like,
why can't I land these combos? But it was because my brain had become so hardwired into online, where you do everything ahead of time to fit the lag, that when I went into an offline tournament, I was like, man, I can't do these juggles. So also in that environment, if you're someone who does mix and match, like, for example, you guys, you might go play online, then you might go to a Wednesday night fight. It's like, it's good that the online can kind of semi-reflect the offline experience as well. That's also important, for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, I've had this experience too while playing a lot online. I mean, I stream Tekken all the time, and it's just like, sometimes I see players with like 3,000 to 4,000 just wins, right? And they know their combos, they know their punishers, they know their combos, they know their OK and stuff like that, but they just haven't punished anything right. And they do. They have like these setups where it's like, this move's -10, but I'm a duck into while standing launcher after because it just works so often. It's just like, it just becomes a part of their gameplay without even realizing it. And I'm just like, yeah, it's like, but then like what Ryan was saying, I get the reverse of that because it's like, I play so much online that when I do play offline, it's like Piccolo taking off the weights or something. It's just like, it's just like, oh shit, -10s are real. Not a myth. Oh my god.
Like I know my punishment got so much worse playing online a lot, and then suddenly going to an offline tournament, and my punishment just is. I've been hop kicks, for example, when I could be 2-3 and 1 splat. You know, it matters a lot. Like
yeah, like imagine you're playing. I
such-
don't know. Imagine you happen to be playing Lars or something, and then you punish something with 2-1 instead of 4-2, 4-4.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Like, wow, you know,
Small difference could
do
be a
jabs.
round win.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be very big.
Those little small things are really cool for like a training mode activity where you sit in a training mode and you have to do, you have to block a hop kick and do 4-2-4 5 times in a row, and it logs that. Those little exercises could be super cool for integrating new players.
Yeah, and backdashing as well, to do like consecutive backdashes in a row, like 2, 3. Now
Yeah.
I agree.
That's something that's really good to brainstorm with pro players, like what exercises to put in the game.
And I keep thinking because new players generally, one of the features they always look for in a fighting game is story mode. And new players also need tutorial. So why don't you combine these two? Why don't you make the story mode a tutorial? So let's say it's for Street Fighter 5 and like Ken dashes at you like, hey, Ryu, break my throw, dude. And something like that. Like
Break a throw.
I feel like they've been trying that, but it just hasn't worked very well. I feel like Tekken 7 definitely tried that.
Street Fighter
especially-
has tried that a little bit.
Yeah. But it's just it wasn't worked out very well. It wasn't probably planned very well and executed very well. It's just
it's
I
in the
actually miss
execution.
throw breaks on Tekken, like the old style.
That's why I like the new Falcon bug. Where he's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh shit, it's a real throw. What do I do about it?
We've become so
You need
lazy
to be on
with
point
throw
for that
breaking
one,
now.
man.
Apparently that is a bug.
Is it like 20 frames or something? Like now it's 20 frames, isn't it, to break a throw? If I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken.
I think
And,
yeah.
I
That's
remember
14.
getting thrown by Fakura. It's 14. I'm like,
Falcon was
look,
14, yeah.
I swear I broke that.
One
Wait a minute.
splat and everything. Like
But then when they throw me again, it's like, okay, now I need to break the throw. I feel like in tag 2, I was so good at breaking throws. Now it's like, we're just lazy, man. And no one practices anyway. You don't don't really have to.
The thing is when
I
it
know my
comes
throw
to
break was better in Tide 2 anyway. I don't know how. I didn't practice, but it was better in Tide 2.
Yeah.
the thing
That's
is
the
when it
thing, I
comes to
think these-
tutorials. Sorry, go for it, Ryan. Go for it.
I was gonna say these newer players won't appreciate that because they'll come in and be like, "This is Tekken." Like for them, Tekken 7 is just Tekken. It's not like, but in Tekken 6, but in Tekken Tag 2. And I think for us, it's kind of like we get a hard straw, right? Or we get the short straw, so to speak, because it's like we want certain changes because of what we're used to, because of the fun we know that can be had if it's done a certain way. Whereas the players that are getting used to it now are like, but this is already good. This is why are we changing it? Why are we making it more? This is fine. So it's so hard, from a balance perspective, like who do you please in that situation?
The thing is, the reason I think tutorials are so important, running from that point, is I don't think fighting games should be made easier to play, but they should be made easier to understand.
Yes,
Absolutely.
that's
so-
well said.
Right? And when I think Harada said this however many years ago, after Tekken Tag Tournament 2, and the reason they didn't put a tutorial on Tekken 7 is because nobody played it, and it was a waste of money, and their budget couldn't support it. I just think no one's ever done it properly, and they're throwing it out the window before having seen the effects of what a proper tutorial mode can do in a fighting game. I think we talked about the VF4 Evo one on the last episode, right? And I think that's a really great starting point for any tutorial mode. But I just think take that and just embellish it, make it more aesthetically pleasing, make it entertaining. I think it has to be entertaining at the end of the day. You're playing a video game. It can't be like,
Yeah. I remember your point a lot. I mean, you said it was good, but like,
to
bottom line,
looking-
you were like, this is dry as desert sand, basically.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
but the concept is interesting. The concept works, and
Yeah.
we could kind of flesh that out a bit more. Tweak it a little bit, modernize it. Popular word today, and I think it would be good to go.
Tekken 7 as a spectator game is sick though, man. Like this, we don't forget like slow-mos. Like so the best
slow-mos are the best
thing
thing.
they added
That's
in, man.
honestly,
Oh, yeah.
Like so good, and like just the animations and everything. It's pretty to watch. It wasn't like Tag 2 wasn't really pretty to watch, I'll be honest. But Tekken
It was a horrible game to watch.
Yeah, Tekken for the longest time, I felt like from another community standpoint, like other fighting game members from other communities, other games, when they view Tekken, it's like, man, it's just so boring. It's just neutral all the time. All they do is backdash. Well, it's just poke until they get a launch. It's like I've always used this analogy a lot. The whole scene in Dragon Ball Z, right? When Piccolo, if Gohan's like, they're moving too fast. I can't see what's going on during the fight. And Piccolo's just like, bro, just slow down. Look at what's going on. We're actually just fighting really fast. All right. It's like once you actually learn how to watch it and understand what's going on with any game, right? Then it becomes fun, right? But it's like getting them to that point, it's very difficult, especially in Tekken too. It's like I think that's a really hard challenge.
I mean, it's a deep game. There should be levels, right? There should. It shouldn't be you watch it, never seen the game before in your life, and you get everything that's happening. Like that. It's not a bad thing that there are levels you don't understand when you watch the game. That's not a bad thing by itself, but it's the how you get people to understand. It's that missing part that's super frustrating. Like, man, why are these guys getting so hype? I wish I could understand, and there's no way to get help. That's the problem.
I have two things to say. Yeah. So this is something that I brought up in my podcast I did last year, end of year. It was number one. So instead of doing, so this is about Tekken World Tour, right? So instead of doing a blast from the past videos, why not have actual mini tutorial clips done by the community in the break in the meantime? Because we've seen those matches millions of times, you know, and that could help the people, because a lot of casual players will watch Tekken World Tour on the channel, right? So teach people, like, this is how to backdash, this is how, you know, this is what this is, and this sidestepping, this is how it works. I think that could really help. And I don't know how feasible this would be, but having like an analysis desk, I know some people do it sometimes. That it doesn't have to be used a lot, but just like after, like, I don't know, 8 games or something, have someone to just go over some of the games and the intricacies of what we saw, like that people may have missed out. Like Ryan said, like, people are going to be confused. Why did he just get hyped there? It's like, oh, because he blocked a low, then he crouch canceled and did a 2-4, and it's like that punish was sick because you had to cancel your, you know, stuff like that. It's like people are not going to understand. I think that would,
yeah, especially while commentating. Sometimes it's like the action happens so fast, you can't explain the intricacies of like the decision making between the two players and stuff. Like, I try to do that, but it's like really hard. You know, I need to hit this. I need to get it in 240 characters in the commentary, right? It's like say it all, explain it all. This is the mind game. This is why they did it. This is why he's a genius. And it's just like sometimes it's like, and then they're already on the next round. You know, it's like
double Luigi.
What was I going to say? So yeah, Spag, you were saying. Yeah, so this kind of break time tutorial clip thing, they actually tried that at the end of last year at Red Bull Kumite. They actually had like a tutorial segment in between the matches. So they would run like a scenario where they show how the shimmy works, and they'll show this like pro player shimmy sequence where one player would, you know, walk out the throw, get a fierce, and get a combo, you know, and in between every other match also, I think it was every block, they did like a tutorial segment, and that was really, really cool. So yeah, that's definitely something that could work for Tekken, and it's probably even more relevant for Tekken because it's a much deeper game. So I think that they should really definitely consider that. I remember Holman back in the Tekken 5 DR days. You guys all know.
Yeah.
You guys all remember Holman, right? He had just started using Haihachi. You know, he had switched from Raven and he was maining Haihachi. But he only picked Raven in the tournament and battered everyone until top 8. And then when top 8 started, he went to Haihachi, and we were like so hyped. Oh my God, he's gone to Haihachi. He's serious now. And I remember the first round, I don't know who he was playing, but he blocked a Wild Rising 3. He blocked a Wild Rising 3, he's in crouch position, and he punished with twin pistons. And I nearly lost my afro. That was hype. I was like, what is going on? How did he do that? And we were like, man, he crouch canceled and did that. And we were like, what? So these tiny little things that even at a pro level, you need someone to kind of break that down. Like, man, what was that just now? Was that guaranteed? You know? I think that having stuff like that, even if, you know, like, yeah, Spag was saying like an analyst deck segment where, you know, there's already someone in the editing room clipping that down. Just as it happens, they're already clipping it down. So that in the break, that's good to go. It's like, guys, we got this Holman clip. Go, run it. And then Iris and Markman will break, or Steve and Rip will break it down. You know, you need that. You need that because that also creates this really strong storyline narrative that carries the tournament. You know, how technical this guy is, or he's the guy with solid defense, or he's the guy with the crazy rushdown. You need that.
Yeah.
If I just say, I saw in Grand Blue, if you punish something in game, it actually shows it as a punish. Maybe we could do that for Tekken as well. Like show that you actually punish it in game, like
in the UI
in
message, like
game.
Yeah, it does.
Like show that you actually punish.
the counter hit message and punish.
Would you like that though?
Yeah.
Do you think that's too? Do you think that like? Do you think the HUD gets a bit cluttered if we always have like counter hit, first attack, like all these things?
I don't actually like that. I'm not a huge fan. I mean, Grand Blue's UI is one of its weaknesses. I think it is too cluttered, and this is not on that point. But for example, in Grand Blue, you have the life bar, and you have all these cooldown icons, and the super bar all in one point. I'm not sure. I mean,
It's
have
too
you guys,
much. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the 4 traits for the skill sets on top, and like what is happening? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it would be quite distracting in a game like Tekken where you have these ginormous sprites, right? To then have like this thing coming up. I think it's great for training mode. Like I loved when punish thing coming where I could like, it's guaranteed. Okay, I know I don't have to try and block with my big toe or whatever on the other controller. You know, that's great, right? So those things were cool. But
or just have this option like.
Yeah, I don't know. I like that you have to react to the animation on the screen. It's a counter hit. You know, do you think?
Yeah. No, I remember when Gutex tried picking up Tekken. One of the things he said was, "How do I know that's a combo?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "He's in the air and he's getting hit." And he's like, "Well, in Street Fighter, it says 5-hit combo, whatever. You know, after your combo is done, you get points for it for some reason, right? But in Tekken, it doesn't do that except if you're in practice mode. You know, so I thought about it back then. I was like, "Oh man, it's true. Tekken doesn't show it, even though I'm used to seeing it for combo videos and all that other stuff."
Wasn't it there for Tekken Revolution? Didn't they actually have
it?
It
was,
right?
Yeah,
I felt like that was like something that they were testing because a lot of stuff.
Maybe. Makes sense.
Yeah, for Tekken 7, the backwalk animation, the Oki system changed all from Tekken Revolution as a test for 7, right? So I was like, maybe that was something they were considering.
The combo counter, even in the practice mode for Tekken 7, is a bit busted, though. There are lots of bugs in Tekken 7's practice mode. I mean, as a Steve player, MYK, you can't actually block and flicker if you record something. It's like...
the recording bug is so annoying.
Yeah. There are tons of bugs,
I think that's something you could easily have in the options. You know, if the player wants to turn it on, they can turn it on. Or, they can turn it off and have a clear UI if they want to. I think that's something you could just have in there. You don't have to enforce it in tournament, but you could just, if players are more comfortable to have like more visual recognition of things happening, they could have that option.
I like that idea.
Yeah. But I think it all comes down to, in the end, just like teaching people certain things, teaching them the game, teaching them like these things that are like quite deep,
I mean, as a new player, you're generally drawn towards things that are big and flashy, like 10-hit combos and lasers, and those are the things that generally are completely useless at a high level. I mean, I made a whole video about the utility of a down forward 1. Because a lot of new players don't. Why is this move good? It's just a pithy little punch, right? But I mean, it's a huge part of high level Tekken.
That's why JDCR's video on the importance of the jab was important, and just having things like that was what I mean in the breaks of like Tekken World Tour and big tournaments, Masters and stuff would really help, because there would be people watching being like, wow, I did not know that. Let me implement that into my game. And I think that when people say to me a lot, Spag, I'm not improving in Tekken. I just feel like I'm stagnating. It's like, I don't think you improve in Tekken constantly over time. That's not how it works. I think you improve in big chunks. When you figure out something like, oh, what if I sidestep and then I have to confirm the whiff? And like when you know that, you've learned something, you've leveled up. When you learn the importance of a jab and how to utilize it, you've leveled up. Like all these little things that you learn, like if you get hit, sometimes you can backdash and then put yourself away from a mix-up. And then that's it. They've learned how to utilize the backdash in a better way. You've leveled up. Like, you know what I mean? Like you have these small things, and I think if you implement them into the Tekken World Tour somehow, or in the game somehow, it would really help people level up quicker. And I think that's what was so hard with getting better at the game before Tekken 7. I think now there's the content creators are doing a really good job with this, but you can't leave it to them. Like it's impossible. It has to.
Yeah. On that note, sorry, go Mike.
Oh, sorry. Like to kind of add on what Spag was saying right now and earlier, like when Leffen was trying to get into Tekken, right? I saw a couple of his streams and his approach to like because he already comes from a standpoint as being a top level player in a different fighting game. So he's just like, I know what it takes to be the best at a game. And it's just like it looked like he approached Tekken in like a very homework, research, study type of way. I need to learn everything about this game in a week. And I'm like, bro, then you just missed
Chill out.
all the fun. Yeah, he totally just like forgot the whole purpose of any video
gaming.
Yeah, essentially. Like, let me just throw that out the window. Let's just make this all homework and like nothing. Right? Data and and I'm like, as a new player, I'm like, dude, like people ask me that all the time. What should I do? You know, I'm finally getting into Tekken. What's the first thing I should do? I was like, dude, just find the fun in the game first. Like whatever that is, right? Like if you like doing a certain move in practice mode, or if you just like doing like this crazy, like rolling around with bears all day, or like just find the fun. It's like, it doesn't have to be something crazy.
Well, that's a great point. Yeah, and I was just gonna double up on what Spag was saying, you know, about content creators in Tekken 7 doing a great job now. Obviously, like with my YouTube channel, like I've been doing nothing with it for the past few years. It's just been like Twitch clips or whatever, right? Cut to the YouTube channel. So I started creating content again, and I was looking around at what everyone else is doing. I was like shocked. There's so much good content creators out there for Tekken now. It's amazing. I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone out there. Like there's so much good content out there now if you're looking for stuff.
Well, I mean, dude, your channel was one of the inspirations for this channel.
For a lot of these content creators. That's
no one else is doing it. That's all. So right, but now it's like everyone is out there doing it. It's awesome.
You started the fire, man.
Yeah, so with this thing now, you know, about having fun, like, yes, I couldn't agree with that anymore, you know, than all the points you guys have said. I mean, you know, players come to me and they're like, you know, I want to learn this frame trap, you know, I want to do this, hit confirm, and, you know, I want to learn all the frame data. And I'm like, I mean, I'll tell you guys in here. I mean, I probably shouldn't tell you because you'll realize I was just a scrub. But like back in the day, when I played like, you know, Tekken 2, 3, King of Fighters 96, 7, 8, you know, I was the champion of all these games, Virtua Fighter 3. I swear to God, I didn't know a single frame. I just knew, you know, I had good instincts. I was quite a fast player. I knew when I had the advantage, for example. You know, I didn't know if it was +2 or +20, but I knew that I can take a turn now, or I knew that I have to block now. There's something that's happened where I have to block now. I didn't know by how much. Can I sneak a jab in? I had no idea, but I better block. And it wasn't until like late Virtua Fighter 3 times, Tekken Tag 1 times, where I really started getting deep into the frame data. Tekken 3, Tekken Tag 1. So, you know, when you start playing fighting games, you don't need to learn the frames straight away. You don't need frame data. I was the champion of my area, of my country, you know, without any frame data. And that's literally just because I loved playing. It was a passion. I played purely from fun. It was just fun. It wasn't like, I need to get this homework done so I can win this other tournament that's happening next week. It was just, this is an enjoyable thing. And it wasn't about, I know it's hard to say in this environment where everyone's super competitive, but it actually wasn't about like being the best or something like that. It wasn't like this higher goal that you have, like where you're going to beat everyone. It was just, I love playing this game. This is super fun. I enjoy this experience. And that's all it was. And that's all it ever needs to be in the very beginning. People need to just like tone it down a bit. When you're starting out, chill. Like the game's already deep and massive. If it becomes competitive later, that's cool. But, you know, like learning all the frames and like that can come. That give it time. That comes later.
I'm like exactly like you, actually. It's pretty funny. Like I was playing in the arcade scene for like Tekken 1 through 5, but I wasn't competing ever. And I always had fun with it. And then Tekken 4, I realized I was beating a lot of people. I was like, am I good at this? Like, what the hell is happening here? Right? And I didn't know. And then I started competing in Tekken 5, and I didn't know frame data at all. Just people would be like in the arcade, like people who are like legends, luckily, because I'm in Southern California. But they'd be like, hey, you can actually punish that with this move. And I'm like, oh, so if I block that, just hit those buttons? Yes. All right, cool. Yeah, that was it. I didn't learn frame data probably until like really close to Tekken 6 or DR probably, actually. But yeah.
Like a couple points about this I wanted to bring up too. It's like, I think playing by feel is great when you're first starting off. Like, especially when I'm learning other fighting games, like when I was getting into Dragon Ball FighterZ for a bit, it took me a while to actually like understand the flow of the game. It's like, you know, when to take turns, when it is your turn, all that stuff, right? I think that definitely comes with some time and just experience. But if you're having fun the whole time, you'll get there. It's just don't make it a daunting to-do list of like, oh, I'm gonna be evil champ within 6 months or something. Right? It's
I mean,
not realistic.
I guess that's hard if you're already a pro player in another game like Left 4 Dead. He's like this dominant force in melee. So I guess for him, when he like then transitions over to Tekken, I guess he does have like this super high expectation level.
I think frames for a lot of new players in particular are sort of like a dirty word where the game stops being about fun. And it's about book learning, right? And there are so many like assumptions and misunderstandings about frame data. Like knowing frame data is like, you're like Neo in the Matrix and you can see all the data pouring down or something. It's not like that at all. It's just a tool to accelerate your learning, basically. And it's a fraction of the game. Not all data is held in frame data. You know, you're not going to learn if it's high, mid, or low, or if it tracks, or its range, or anything. It's just a slither. It's a portion of the game.
I would just one small modification. I would say it doesn't accelerate your learning. It just adds to your learning. I wouldn't say you learn at a faster rate. You're just learning what you're learning, but it's like a new layer. It's like a fresh area of the game. You know, it's another thing entirely. And I think if you're going to take it seriously, it does need to come in at some point.
Sure.
Where that is going to be different for different people, because I know people that are very fictitious. They're very meticulous in how they break things down. They like the molecular structure of things. That's their, you know, for some people that would be the attraction to Tekken. It's I want to study the frames. That appeals to me, you know. So I think it's different for everyone. But just from my experience, and also it sounds like also Rip's experience as well, it was definitely just like, this is super fun. I'm enjoying this. Probably didn't do optimal combos for the first 10 years, but whatever. And, you know, it's just like, this is how I learned the game. And here I am now, you know. And I think that should also be cool too, because I hear a lot of players getting, you know, deterred from playing because they're like, man, how am I going to learn all these things? You know, I can't learn all these moves and learn all the frames. But let's be realistic. If you're new on Tekken, you probably can't apply the frame data you're reading anyway, because you can't react. If you do a jab, you probably can't see if it hit, if it was a normal hit, if it was sidestepped, if they ducked it, if it was blocked, if it whiffed. Like, you're not ready. Your brain, your muscle memory hasn't been programmed yet. Your brain is not hardwired to digest all that. So you're going to do the wrong thing anyway. So before all that, get used to just how the game flows, like MYK was saying, how the game flows, because there's no point in memorizing the monologue if you haven't learned the language at all yet. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, just develop your instincts for Tekken, you know. Like, there are so many things in Tekken that we just unconsciously do that, you know, a newer player won't know. And like you said, you need to learn, like, to even react to this. You're not going to learn frames straight away, man.
That's hard.
I remember, what's his name? Punko? It was Punko, right? The Akuma player, when he started playing Tekken, and everyone was like, oh, let me try and beat him with frames. And then that one guy was like, I'm going to fucking snakehead you, fam. And he couldn't block it. It's because he can't react to that, because he's like, I've never seen this before. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, you know, take it easy first, man. You know, play the game.
If I can just say, I think when people ask, like, how do I go about learning Tekken, I think it's important to have people around you, like a community that you can talk to, so you can bounce ideas off each other, and have people explain to you what stuff is, and then you can explain stuff back to them as well. So I think if you're trying to learn on your own, it's really difficult. Like, what do you need to know? What do you need to look up, for example? But if you have a small, even just a small group chat somewhere, you know, you can talk to each other, you can link each other resources. Because I know when I started playing Tekken, I streamed as soon as I picked up Tekken, I started streaming. So I could ask the chat, what do I do against this move? Or how do I punish this move? Or was this move unblocked, for example? I could just ask anything in real time. I barely spent any time in lab actually going over this stuff. I could just ask people in chat, how do I punish this? Yeah,
the chat that's how I learned fantastic Tekken. For that. Yeah,
that's how I learned Tekken.
Fighting games. Yeah, it's really great.
That's a great positive to be able to stream and ask and have a small group to talk to. But I think the whole point of our conversation was that there needs to be something extraneous to that for people to actually learn. Like, so not everyone's going to be a streamer. Not everyone's going to have.
Of course. But I'm just saying it's one way. It's just one way.
For sure. Yeah, I think to implement it into the Tekken World Tour somehow, which is a great tool, by the way. So I remember before Tekken World Tour, man, Europe was like, no one knew any of our players, and, you know, and all this kind of stuff. But it's a great tool for people to, because so many people watch it to learn and then implement something into the game as well itself, so that you don't need a group or you don't need to be a streamer to learn the game. Do you know what I mean? I think
dojo events was genius as well. The dojo events thing, that is genius.
That's genius, bro. Yeah,
so good.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. TWT in general, it's one of the main factors Tekken is where it is today. It's really inspired in both concept and execution. It's a real bummer it's not going on now.
Yeah, no, it's sad, but like I said before Tekken World Tour, the Europeans, like our community, I was so excited to commentate for Tekken World Tour in 2017, because I was like, I'm finally going to be able to teach people outside of Europe about our players. I was so excited. I can't tell you. Like I was like, this is Yolanda, and this is Fergus, this is Super Q, and this is this person. And I was telling the stories about, you know, when I see two people play, I'm like, oh, they have a history, and and this guy plays me. You know, like I just loved that storytelling of, and I still do. You know, of teaching people about our community, and then now with Pakistan as well. It's just the crazy thing in Dubai when I was commentating that event. How many different flags I saw. And I think overall, I think Mark made the point. Mark Man was like, I think there were 38 or more countries represented in the World Tour for 2019.
Wow.
That is insane. We have so much diversity, man. I think that's one of the reasons why it's so popular.
If MYK puts the headset on the dog, I'm done. That would be so funny. I would die of laughter.
MYK, what's your dog's name? Oh, he's not here.
So I think Pakistan is a beautiful addition to the world of Tekken that we live in, because you know, I'm sure probably Spag and the Asim, of course, there are players who knew, but we just didn't know. I mean, of course we knew there was a scene there because there's a scene there, but to that level, like players that can beat Ni, like what? Players that can just like beat Chikarin and all these top dons, like how? It's
mad, you know. A shame Arslan's not here now, but he doesn't need to be like that. Asim told me in tag 2. He goes, I swear, this is what he said. He goes, there's a guy, his name's Arslan. Yeah? And he goes, Hassan, I'm telling you, if this guy plays against Koreans, he's gonna beat them. I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. And Asim doesn't exaggerate. So I was like, shit, is he?
Yeah.
And then I was like, raw, you know, it's crazy.
That is so anime. That is so anime.
These guys out from under the rock.
Yes.
Tekken World Tour.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. A guy that can beat Ni in the grand finals of Evo. That's not like a guy that can beat Ni in the grand finals of Evo clean, and it wasn't even like a player from Korea or Japan or any of the, you know, traditional Asian countries that we're used to. It was from Asia, but it was Pakistan. You know, no one would have ever. And the thing about Evo that super impresses me is they sent, like, I don't know how many hundreds of players came from Korea and Japan, but they sent one dude from Pakistan. They sent one guy. It wasn't like they sent the whole entire unit. They sent one. They're like, yeah, you take this one. You got this one. We'll watch on stream. You know, that's just so impressive. The guy who won Evo Japan also just then went by himself, you know, no homeboys in the back cheering him on, and just did the job. I think it was even in winner's bracket. Like, you know, what?
I got to call out the Pakistanis though. You know, when Arslan won Evo Japan, they were too gassed. They were saying stuff like, Arslan is not even the best in Pakistan. I'm like, shut up. You know, he's very low tier in Pakistan. I'm like, bro, you're a liar, man. Arslan is actually like, he is the best in Pakistan right now, I think, anyway. And a lot of people
is he the best right now? Is he the best?
I believe so. I think so. Yeah, I mean, he is the best. But then, of course, you got other killers as well. Just because he's the best doesn't mean that there aren't other killers. We found out about Atif. We found out about Awais Honey, Hira Malik, and Bilal, of course. He won LCQ. And a bunch of other players. The John, yeah. And then you got Awais Liaquat. You got so many players in Pakistan that are really good at tons. And that's why doing that Chakra Cup last year was awesome to see all these different. There was so much character diversity in Pakistan as well. It was mad.
I got a question. So we've seen greatness come out of Korea. We've seen amazing stuff out of Japan. Like nobody was playing like a man possessed in that group, right? The finals. We've seen now what Pakistan has produced. Undoubtedly, you know, some of the best Tekken we've ever seen in our lifetime. What is it like? What are we missing in Europe and North America? Because for me, there's a lot of talent in both continents, but we don't see a lot of like, you know, Tekken World Tour won by this North American or this European, or, you know, we see like the occasional master event or challenger event won by, you know, European or North American, but we don't really see that kind of global dominance. You know, like for example, in Street Fighter, you'll get like IDOM will win Capcom Pro Tour or Knuckle-Doo will, but in Tekken, we don't really get that contrast of where you'll see like a super dynamic mixture of continents winning the big one, whether it's Evo or Tekken World Tour Finals. What do you guys think on that? Why do you think that is?
I think there's a, if I may start.
Yeah, go for it. Sorry.
I think an important point here is that we in Europe and America, I think we don't really use the movement as well as the Asians or the Pakistan players do. I think that JDCR not too long ago made a video about how he thinks that Americans play wrong against Mishimas, and I don't think that only applies to Americans. I think that applies to Europeans just as well. People tend to use, that's what he said, tend to use to move back and forth all the time instead of using the third dimension. I think that's a big point. And another big point is that we don't have enough offline experience, or like enough experience against the whole cast. And so our only option right now is to play online, more or less. And due to the netcode being an issue, we sort of slowed down in a sense that we are not really confident in our whiff punishers. Because what I've seen from the Pakistanis and like from the Koreans is their ridiculous ability in whiff punishing things, right? If you whiff against them, you're dead. And netcode being such a big issue currently is that basically makes it so that we can't really practice that as much because we're not confident with the connection. That's one big thing. And the other big thing is that we're not, in my opinion, we're not utilizing the movement to the point we should use it. Like I see a lot of people backdashing to the moon and wave dashing towards us again, which is fine. But at the end of the day, that's not what gets you the wins. It's about proper and right spacing, and just so space yourself, just so that if someone whiffs, you'll be able to whiff punish him. And that's what I think they are really, really good at. They really try to master this aspect of the game, which I think in the long run will get you the wins. Spacing is a very important point of the game that JDCR, in my opinion, has mastered to a certain extent. He's really good at the spacing. He like spaces just out of the range where if you whiff, he's gonna catch you with a down forward two, he spaces out, backdashes, ducks. If you whiff something, you're gonna get hit by wild setting two of Dragunov or something. And that's just something that we as America and Europe should work on, because that's really important and underlooked as a big skill set actually that separates the good players from like top level players. And they are really good at that. They practice that the whole time.
Absolutely. I just want to say that the common denominator between Korea, Japan, Pakistan, is that they've had this arcade culture. Hearing about and seeing how these Pakistanis play and the conditions. Fergus, me and you went to one of the arcades in a random arcade in a city. It's not even in Lahore, and these guys they have to climb up with a rope, to get up to that.
I almost fell then as well.
With a rope. I can upload the video.
Like literally.
Literally like the ladder, and then you got
to climb up, man.
A rope to get to the arcade.
Damn.
And these guys are just playing there, really cramped, and they're banging out Tekken, right? The harsh environment and the very sort of competitive environment they have in these arcades, there are grudges. I've heard stories about Pakistanis. They're grudges in the arcades, and a lot of competition. And these guys are playing all the time. That's what Asim told me. I said to Asim, why are these guys so good? Because he was from Pakistan. He's from Pakistan. He said, "Hey guys, Hassan, they just play all the time." And that's one of the reasons why Low High's results, I think, became a lot better as well, because he told me that I'm just playing all the time. I get up, I play, and I sleep. And I get up, I play, and I sleep. And it's the amount of Tekken, because their reactions are so on point. Like Mihawk said, if you whiff in front of them, they will punish you. Nee said something similar. He said that the punishment in Pakistan is one of the best. That's the best attribute about them. They play so much, but they also play, like Mihawk said, we need the offline. We don't have that. They play in arcades all the time. And it definitely helps. Imagine if America had all the best players. Let's say Jimmy, Anakin, Margin, Joey, all these guys, and they would go to a single place, and all these guys could come as well. And you just played every day in these arcades. Of course, the level would be a lot higher. I think that's a big thing, because you can't ignore the fact that 3 countries, Japan, Korea, Pakistan, are just super good at the game, and they all have this arcade culture.
That's dedication right there, man. First to 5 with the rope. That's dedication, man.
You gotta be physically fit just to get there.
I had to put my hand up, like.
Oh, sorry. Now, I just wanted to add on the whole Ryan topic. Like, why do you think IDOM is able to do it in Street Fighter V, whereas like we're not really seeing those European or American players like really dominate like that right now, currently in Tekken 7? I also think it's also because of because what Spaghetti Rip was saying, right? Like the arcade culture, right? And also Korea, Japan, they always kind of got it first, right? And then this is also kind of diving into the whole offline online culture. Pakistan's mostly offline. That's also the thing that you were saying too about Low High just playing the game a lot, right? And what he's saying, like, oh, my whip punishment's all in tune, everything's in tune with the game perfectly all the time. And I call that like having great Tekken senses. Like if you just play a lot, your senses for the game on when to go for whiff punisher, your sidestep, when to sidestep, what to sidestep, what moves you're trying to look for and stuff. Like I think all that stuff, the timing can't be any more perfect than offline, because that's literally how you're going to be playing in tournaments and all that. Online definitely hinders that. I mean, I could definitely tell you guys right now, my whiff punishment game has gotten immensely worse from the last like iteration of Tekken till now, because all I've been playing is online. I'm like, I don't trust my whiff punishes 90%. I duck an electric online. I'm like, yeah. I'm gonna just let it go.
I agree with you completely, man. I'm the same, exactly the same.
Yeah,
No, it's the same way for us. In Southern California, we used to have arcades, even when like Tekken Tag 2, Tekken 6, etc. Right? So a lot of the US didn't have it, but we had it. So we were always ahead of the US, like because of our region having an arcade. So we recognize it just at that within our own country level, right?
Yeah.
And then you go beyond that, and now it's like, well, we don't get that either. So now we don't gather together. Like learning when you're in an environment with a bunch of players learning at the same time accelerates your learning. At least it did for me. And when I play online, I have the stream chat like Fergus was saying, but it's not the same level that I'm getting as it was when I was in the arcade.
And Street Fighter 5 had a simultaneous release worldwide. So I think that is huge. Like, I mean, like, I don't think America could have had as strong of a performance in Street Fighter 5 because in Street Fighter 4, they didn't, because Street Fighter 4, Japan had it earlier than everybody else. It's just like, it's like.
Yeah, one of the biggest divides as well, when you kind of transition from this ingrained arcade community to this online community, is in Europe, and I guess in the US as well, fighting games are not like standard as esports organization, involvements. Like it's not that common that you have a wealth of fighting game professional teams. You might have that Overwatch team, or you might have that Counter-Strike team or Dota team, whatever. But in the West, you don't really have like a lot of teams just for fighting games. And I don't mean guys that just printed their name on a jersey and go around, have like 3 initials before their name on the stream. No, I'm talking about like where there's a company or a parent company that pays a proper salary and an entire team go out to events. There's not a lot of that. And it's not that common. It's kind of almost unusual if that's going on in the West. So that is really different because that obviously, if you're like living from gaming, then that changes the way you invest your time. These things we talk about with punishing, improving your movement. You can't do that part-time. You're not going to get this pristine movement if you're only playing twice a week. It's not going to happen. So the time invested, that Spag said, the Asim said, that the Pakistan guys, they just play. They're always playing. They're playing all the time. They're playing right now. Like that can't happen if you're a student and you study full-time, or you're working wherever at the deli, or you're doing your other hobby. Like it's not going to happen. No matter how passionate you are, it's not going to, you might get really good. You might even win your local, you might even win a major, but you're not going to be this consistent force like one of these guys. It's not going to happen. So sponsorship is a problem because it's hard to, switch everything else off and say, right, I'm going to follow this thing full time if you're not getting the backing that makes that sensible to do. Most people are not 16 anymore with no responsibilities. Most people have certain amount of responsibilities that they need to be able to support financially. So it's just not realistic to then say, I'm going to drop everything to be this guy if financially doesn't make sense. I know it sounds weird. You're not just doing it for money. It's the passion, but there's got to be something that pays the rent as well. My landlord ain't trying to hear, you might get the rent if I make top 8. He's not interested. So make sure you watch the stream. He doesn't want to hear that. So this is the thing. I think from a realistic perspective, it's great that everyone's passionate and they love the game and all that, and they want to follow the Tekken World Tour. But at some point, you have to be quite realistic in your investment. Because there's a lot of players saying, how do I get good? Well, you won't like the answer to how do I get good, because the answer is you probably have to drop 60 to 70% of what you're doing now to get that good. You might have the talent. This is why I say like a lot of players, they're super talented, super talented, more talented than me, more talented than I ever was. But they just can't invest that time that's needed. They can't do it because it's too much of a commitment, and it will take out of important things that they already got invested in their life at that time. And that's the Asian arcade culture. I mean, just gaming in Asia is so much stronger embedded in their general culture. I remember first going to Japan, and it was like a normal thing to have a family day out at the arcade, to take the wife and kids and spend the day at the arcade. That is unheard of, really, in the West. I mean, it's not just something like, hey, let's go to the arcade today and play Time Crisis all day. Like, that's not a thing here. or at least it's never been a thing for me, in my circle of friends. So that, changes a lot too. I know that there's been some, derogatory comments about pro gaming in Asia by, Asians, and this pro licensing thing that's happened, that's changed a lot as well, and companies are more willing to be involved. But even though it's a bit more negative, even though there is some negative area, the arcade culture always kept fighting gaming, specifically fighting gaming, super strong in Asia. That's what held it up. Those were the strongest pillars for that community. And now it's all online. It's still okay because they have like fiber optic internet. Like, it's like amazing. I mean, I think almost all of you have spent some amount of time in Asia. You know how good the internet is there. Like, it's fantastic, right? So that again is like another advantage that they have over us when we're struggling to punish a whiffed electric, right? A crouched electric, or whatever, So there are so many issues in, how we kind of overcome this barrier of the level, and Tekken's a very, very hard game. Tekken is harder than Street Fighter, just to add that, in my opinion. Don't want to get in trouble here. But yeah, in my opinion, Tekken is a harder game to master than Street Fighter 5 is. Street Fighter 5. So it is probably a bit easier for someone to get to really higher ranks in Street Fighter than it is for Tekken, because we're seeing that now, actually. We're seeing that in the disparity in both Pro Tours. We're seeing that. So, I don't think it's a difference in talent. I don't think like one tour has more talented players than another game. But I do think that the game is super hard. I know, I've played both games. Tekken is ridiculous. And also, there's not a lot of players in the West that are willing to commit the right amount of time that it actually does take. Because if Fergus wakes up tomorrow and says, right, I want to be the best, who's he going to train with? If you want to play offline, you've got to play with someone, right? There needs to be someone else realistically close to him, local, that they can meet up regularly and make this a thing where they're training for XY major. I want to win Combat Breaker. I want to win Summer Jam. I'm going to go to BAM in Australia, whatever, right? So yeah, I think I've rambled on long enough, but I've made my.
I mean, I want to that's exactly kind of what got me out of competing. In 2011, there's Tekken 6. I was pretty good back then. That was like
you
kind
were
of my
sick,
peak
man.
problem.
You were sick. Sorry to cut
back
you, but I
then,
remember you were sick. You came to France and you got like fourth at this. That tournament that you came fourth at was stacked. that tournament was stacked. I didn't even make it out of pools. Like it was ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. So, but I remember like after that, I went to Korea for Tekken Crash, my first and only time I've ever been to Korea, and I got beat up in the arcade so bad at Green Arcade, and I was just like, "What's the point? If I don't live here, how am I ever gonna get this good?" And like I came home and I was like, the hell am I gonna do? We have an arcade in SoCal, but
that's how I felt in Pakistan. Like I played loads of people there, then I came back to Ireland. I'm like, okay, time for 3-part online.
It sucks.
Fire up the stream, man.
It's also like so when I was in Korea, I played online. It was funny because I went to a PC cafe, and the first person I found online was Nee, and I ended up deathmatching him for like 3 hours. It was sick. I mean, it felt like online I was punishing things which I would never imagine that I would be able to on European connections. And although the Koreans also say, it feels really great to like, it's very good, the online experience, but it's still not the same as going offline. It might feel the same, but it's a different thing. Like not getting immediate feedback, or maybe you just play different. I don't know what it is, but it is different when you play in person. And that's why I think Margin Obama was saying that Japan, they have this new Red Bull venue in Tokyo, and they do stuff
Fighting
like a lot
Tuesdays.
of Fighting Tuesdays, and they do a lot of exhibitions, and they even have coaching sessions. I think they were saying that there's some of the pro players will come down and teach newer players how to play. Like they do a lot of offline activity at that surrounding Tekken, and I think that's the reason why we've seen Japan now kind of rise up. The Tekken World Tour champion is Japanese. We saw so many Japanese. I think in the Korean Masters last year, the whole winners side on top 8 was Japanese. So like this was unheard of, and Korea has always been on top. Now we're seeing a bit of a shift, and I think that might be one of the reasons why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember you, Rip, last year when you came to them in Germany, you said you feel as strong as you haven't been for ages, and so it just shows how important it is to play offline with people and just have someone you can talk to, ask someone about things, and just exchange either strategies, opinions, maybe ask someone out on things, and that is really important, and that's how you can get much better in a short amount of time if you put the right practice on it. Because what also is really important in regards of getting better is that you can play a long time. I'm sorry for the expression, but you can be trash, or you can play a short amount of time and be really good. It's about efficiency. It's not only about playing a game and grinding it, because there's a lot of people that grind a game
mindlessly.
Yeah, there's like
and reinforce bad habits.
Like there's a lot of people that just grind the game, but they're not efficient at it. And so if that people has 14, like literally, there is people that I play online. There is like a Paul player that has 14k wins on Tekken God, True Tekken God or whatever. He does green rank shit. He does shit that he would get killed for if he played offline. But that thing, he just got so used to these habits that he will do those things and won't learn from them. And he's not playing the game in an efficient way. And that's why I'm saying it's very important to not only play the game, but also if you really want to improve, think about how you're efficiently going to improve. What do I need to do in order to get better? Okay, I need to practice throw breaking because I'm bad at that. Hit the P mode. Get thrown by Dragunov's command throws. Nice, I got that. Now let's try punishing this and that. You can get good within a short amount of time if you put the right practice. If you're efficient with things. You can just keep grinding.
Completely.
What's that saying about insanity? Doing something the same thing over and over, expecting something different, right? It's like that's the exact same. Like,
it's quality, not. Go for it, Ryan. Go for it.
Oh, in this new world of online communication, I think it's really important to kind of embrace that it's going to be harder to teach each other, right? Because loss is loss. Whether you lose your pet goldfish and you have to like put them down the toilet, or whether you lose on a game and if you lost 50-0, like you need a degree of empathy when someone deals with you about loss. When you lose on a video game, it sucks. Even if you love the game to bits, when you lose really badly, it doesn't matter how good you are, it doesn't matter how patient you are, it doesn't matter how okay with dealing with loss you are. It really is annoying and it sucks. Okay, so you need, like, when you're talking with someone else about like what can I do better, or you don't need someone who's like, oh, you're trash, or like you just don't know how to do this. Like, you need empathy, and that's something that playing in person creates a stronger environment for. When you're with someone, you talk to them different to when it's on the internet. That's just a common thing. Someone who sits next to you was it Sunny Hills Golf Arcade you had in
Southern Hills Golfland?
Southern Hills Golf Arcade. Yeah, when you're sitting next to someone there, you're not really gonna like win the match and be like, dude, you're trash. That you're gonna be. I mean, you might. But there's gonna be, when it's someone you like and you care about, there's gonna be a degree of respect and empathy that you give them after you wreck them like 10-0. And that sometimes is missing in online communication because one, you can't see how actually wrecked they are at home. They're typing to you in a certain way, but they actually really need your help and support right now. And because you can't see them, it's harder to like communicate on the you don't know if they just need a stern like, dude, you need to block more. Or if they actually need a slightly more deeper breakdown of, well, in this situation, you would open here, there, you could have done that, you didn't escape through it, blah, 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 blah. And when you're with someone, it's so much easier to know where you need to take each other in the conversation. And I think that when we help each other or try to, we need to be aware of that and be quite mindful of that. This communication is different and I can't see this person. So let me just take a step back and see what they need first, And I think that could really help the way we all learn and grow together as a community.
Yeah, that is such a great point. Like, I forgot about, back in the arcade days when you had your quarters up, right? And if you sometimes you'd go there early and there'd be no one else, and some guy would come up and you'd be better than him, but he would keep putting his quarters in, and you'd beat him like 4 or 5 times where you're like, man, I'm taking this guy's money, and like for me at least, I'd be like, I feel kind of bad, you just give them like some advice, like after this you can do this. You start teaching them, then all of a sudden you have a friend or whatever. That never happens online. Never.
I wonder what games can do to
that's also an issue, at least for PC Tekken. I think that's also an issue of Steam, where it doesn't let you communicate with your opponent unless you add him, and you can't have thousands of people in your friend list just because Steam has their.
Oh, guys, I need to go.
Their limitations on it.
Sorry to cut you, Mihawk. I need to go right now. Like my baby needs me. We're gonna So family time to be a dad. So thank you guys so much for having me.
Bye,
Ryan. Great talking to you all.
See you, Ryan.
And
have a good one, man.
See you next time.
Take care, Ryan. Thanks so much.
Chatting with you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's really difficult to teach someone or to talk to someone online, since especially with online Tekken, you always have to add them at some point. And just like due to the limitations of Steam, you can't have thousands of friends on Steam, even though you would probably like to help out someone, your Steam friend. I mean, I get that all the time. There's a lot of people that add me and I can't add any more people just because I have like 300 people, and 90% of them I don't even know because I accepted a lot of people that I don't really know. And now it's like,
Me too.
who is that on my friend list, you know? And it's kind of difficult to help out new players.
I delete friends that I don't know to add other friends I don't know.
Yeah.
That's why for Steam, I have one account just for Tekken and another account just for like other fighting games.
Damn. Wow.
That's how it does anyway.
Guys, I was thinking, on that point, do you think there's anything games could do to sort of reward and encourage positive communication between players? Like, if you send a message to someone and you give it a thumbs up, then you get like, I don't know, some kind of in-game currency. Because it's such a vital part to be able to communicate with each other. And what can games do to encourage that?
I mean,
It's gonna start getting passive aggressive and sarcastic. You're so good, man. You're the best player ever.
Great defense, bro.
Thumbs up. You're so amazing, bro.
something that's really cool in Overwatch is there is like an endorsement system. If you finish the match, you can endorse a player. You can say, hey, he was a good teammate. He was a shot caller. There is different categories that you can endorse someone with, and then there's like different levels. So he's like level 3 in the endorsement regard, and that's pretty cool, I think, because you don't have to use it, but you can appreciate someone if you like really liked him, if you liked the way he communicated, maybe if you liked how he called out the shots, how he said to target someone and stuff like that. And that's really cool, I think.
Yeah, but bro, if you had that endorsement for Tekken, if you just lost to someone that you thought was a masher, it's like, shit, fucking behavior, 1 star, fuck this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it wouldn't go well talking.
No. Yeah, I think like, the problem, of course, is fighting is a 1v1, right? So endorsement system like Overwatch or even like League of Legends, you can like give someone props or whatever. It's not really the same. But the answer I've been asking for so long, if you just have a 3v3 format online where you and 2 friends team up and go up against 3 other people, then you can have an endorsement system in there, right? Or you can foster communication between the 3 people. Be like, hey man, do this next time you play against an Oscar or whatever it is,
Yeah.
I think if you remember, you can see the name of the player in early season.
Yeah,
you can actually see their name, and then you can just dodge it. If it's someone that beats you, you can just dodge them straight away, like without even connecting.
Fantastic.
Yeah. That's the downside of 1v1 games.
Well,
that's a part of online, man. Also, like one and done, win or lose. It's just like, why are you even playing online?
Why are you playing? Like, we're both waiting now.
I know. Just go play player matches or something.
I know. I really think they need to put in at least the first to 2 on ranked to make it count. I think again,
really
KI
cool
does that. Yeah.
Like, say for example, they add a ranked system where you can do a 1st to 3, and if you win the 1st to 3, you get more points in ranked.
Yeah.
Why can they not be a thing? Like,
so easy.
Play a 1st to 3, a proper set. If you win the 1st to 3 in ranked, you gain more points than you would by winning a single game in ranked. And then it's like, I won a proper longer set against a player, so I didn't win because it was luck based or anything. I won because I was the legit better player. And how can I get rewarded? Get more rank points. That would be a cool idea, I think.
In arcades, they have revenge match, right? Which is just a single rematch. But if you brought that to online console, why don't you say like revenge set or something? We have a challenge the 1st to 2 in the ranked afterwards or something, or 1st to 3 afterwards. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I like
There's a lot of things they could do.
Tons they could do.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think they need to as well, because I think with this quarantine and this whole situation, people are kind of figured out, online isn't that good, man. Even people that play majority offline, they're like, now they got to play online. It's like, damn, this is trash. So
it definitely needs a revision on the rank system, in my opinion. It needs a little update.
A revamp, like a complete revamp at this point.
And also, a big thing that needs to happen is don't let them save the ranks locally.
Save scum. Yep.
Dude, that's the worst.
It's so bad.
Like, why is someone able to save his ranks on his PC and reset them if he loses? Just save them online, like we had to do all the times before. Like, why was that even changed?
Yeah, the fact that it's saved locally means they don't take it seriously.
Yeah. To be honest, I do that, but like reverse. Like I save a rank, and then when I get max rank, I go back.
Save scummer, bro.
Save scummer Fergus. We're trying to be beginner, huh? Super Smurf Fergus out here. Trying to beat all these new players all day.
I have nothing
exposed.
Fergus 2K8.
Please don't cancel me, man.
Yeah. Trying to get arcade mode players. I see how it is.
Oh no. That was a sesh.
Yeah, that's an issue though.
Yeah.
I mean, there's tons of things that they could do to just to make the game even better than it is. You know, there's
But above all else, we're just like I said, we're going to repeat it quite a few times because, like I said, the negative is always going to be louder than the positive. Like we just have to remember that the game is sick. Like we want to talk about the negatives because that's where there's room for improvement. You know what I mean? There's no use like constantly talking about like, oh, how good the game is. Like, yeah, the game's good. But if we want it to be better, then you have to. Unfortunately, you have to talk about the negatives in it. And I feel like, but when you talk about negatives, unless you every so often throw in there that the game's good, you know, people are just going to be like, wow, it's just negativity everywhere, man. Damn, the game's
What
trash.
I've been saying about that specifically is like, I think there's a difference between criticism and toxicity. There's a lot of stuff that I've seen out there where it's just like Tekken 7's trash. I'm not playing. I'm done with this game. I'm like, where was the construction in there? You know, tell me what you want that sucks so badly. So, you know, like there's so little of that nowadays, and so much of just people parroting and repeating what other people have said. You know, like oh yeah, Michael Murray balanced this game. It's so whack. I'm like, he doesn't even balance the game. Like, what are you even talking about? You know, like that's just toxic to me. You know, that's not constructive at all. It's inaccurate and it's wrong and it doesn't help anything. So that's what I've been seeing a lot of it. That's what's been frustrating me.
Yeah, for sure. It's not constructive at all. So it doesn't help.
Yeah.
I just think that a lot of players, especially nowadays, or most of the Tekken players are to this point core players that have been playing the game since like Tekken 5. You guys, I mean, I started with Tech 2, so I'm rather new, and like the old school players rather tend to, instead of going on Twitter and say, hey, do this and that, they just tend to accept it because, as you said earlier, Rip, you've been in this position where you got the game and you had to deal with it and you were fine with it. But nowadays, the thing is that people that play Tekken don't only play Tekken, they play other games where they see that, complaining about the game in general helps or might help in a sense. And so they feel like if they do the same thing that they do in other games, when they do that in Tekken, they will somewhat get somewhere. And I think the old school players or the players that to an extent have a brain just won't do that because they know what it's like to be, or they can imagine what it's like to be in Murray's position, what it's like to be in Harada's position.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
There's a couple things about that, right? Like on one hand, you have the balance decisions that have to be made. And like when balance patches come out, a lot of times they've been wrong. They've been wrong so much, and like a lot of times you just have to deal with it, right? And if you're a competitor, you just play what it is. You know, you have to make a choice. Yeah. This goes to what Jimmy J with Tran was saying forever ago. You know, like pick top tier or shut up. You know, or don't and shut up because you made that choice. You know, like it's kind of like that. So if you're a competitor and you're competing to win, you do what you do to win. Like you do whatever's necessary. That's part of being a competitor, right?
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, what you're saying about people complaining but to get what they want, to me that's been the biggest downfall of like the NRS community and the Killer Instinct community. Yeah. Both those communities had multiple patches, and they had a lot of patches based off community feedback. A big thing about Killer Instinct was it went from one developer to another, right? From season 1 to season 2 and 3. The season 1 developers I worked with, they were out here in Southern California, and they were very much along the lines of like, we're going to let it rock. Like, communities complain about it, but let's let it rock. And eventually they'll figure out answers for this, and they would let things rock. From season 2 onward, they were much more patch heavy, and the community was like, oh man, change this, change that. And like every time the community got more involved, and we'd get this back and forth to developers, and it just like, I feel like the overall product went down. And more importantly than that even, because the same thing happened in NRS, the community being so vocally negative about all the patch changes constantly made other people not want to play the game. It's like, dude, I go on Twitter and all I see is people complaining about this game. Why would I want to be part of that scene? That's whack. Those guys aren't having a good time.
Yeah.
And so that's what I see starting to happen with Tekken now. And it might be too late, to be honest. Hopefully it's not. But if it continues down this path of like, man, Kazuya got Hellsweep and blah, 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 and like, here I am with Lily and she didn't get nothing. And that just continues with all the other characters. And then people, if the developers react to that and actually say, all right, fine, here's Eliza's low now. Please complain more so we can give you more changes you want. Like, that's going to suck. It's going to be terrible.
they shouldn't be checking off everybody's checklist, wish
Yeah.
list, and all that. That's not the way to bring balance and bring happiness to everybody. It's like, dude, it's fine if some characters suck, right? But it's just like everybody just thought that all these poorer or like these weaker characters were automatic and get all this stuff. Like everyone's gonna get a Steve back one, everyone's gonna get an electric, everybody gets a hell sweep. Screw it, you know. It's like, no, man. It's like,
Damn, Oprah balancing.
yeah, that's the worst balancing idea.
Yeah, because like we mentioned before, like the community is going to have biases and they're going to have their subjectivity as well. And I think the job of the developers is to transcend that subjectivity, even their own dispositions. You know, like if they maybe someone in Namco just really likes Elisa, I don't know, but it's like you got to transcend.
They seem to like her. They only give her boss. Like last 4 patches.
Wasn't she whack though in Tag 2?
She was okay.
She was alright.
She was okay, but she wasn't like great, right?
She was never a bad character.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was just like
All-rounded, you could say.
I think the addition of Down 3 from Tag 2 to Tekken 7 really helped.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
It
helped.
and the 14 frame launch that she has 4-3-2.
Yeah. There's a lot of things about her. That's all these power crushes from stance and whatever. But she's a tricky character. But yeah, to try to transcend that, you know, and of course, like Mikey said, like you can't just listen to community all the time because they're gonna have biases, man. They're gonna be like, yeah, make my character stronger because it's my character. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, you gotta find that balance. I felt like Tekken Tag 2, like that game was out for how many years? 5, 6 years, and like minimal changes, but we rocked with it the whole time. And there was a tier list, of course, but man, it was calm. And like, how much did they take community feedback there? I mean, it was minimal changes, and we just let it rock. And I think if season 1, Tekken 7, like in season 1, we thought that Jack and Dragunov were just like OP, but it was only because Saint and JDCR are just magicians. They're insane, and they made those characters into what they were. And yes, they were good, but also we got John Ding winning with Lucky Chloe. We had Kazumi there. We had Kudan's coming with Devil Jin last minute and be like, "Hello, I'm Tekken World Tour Champion now." And it's like, I think if, let's say they just left season 1 as it is, I reckon, but then we would have found out Akuma was really good, and that's kind of where we've got to be. But I think if you maybe they listen to the community too much in some regards, and
maybe,
and then, or they just wanted to change the game too much. And,
I think that's it.
Yeah, and then it just ended up being kind of crazy, and I don't know.
Yeah, because I think with season 3, the thing that bothers me the most, I didn't talk about this earlier, but season 3 is they made a lot of like the third hits of strings, counter hit launchers on delay. I hate those kind of strings in the game, right? And they made more of them. I was like,
has that shit. Yeah.
Right, but I'm saying like
So
as a new player, like a lot of the complaints are like, oh, I didn't know there was a third hit there. And now it's like, okay, instead of just getting hit, now your counter hit launched. Oh, great. It's like, that's double bad for a new player, right? And it's also bad in general, I feel like. So I didn't like that direction. It was obviously something they planned for season 3 because you can see it happened a lot through the patch notes. But they clearly were trying to change the game up, going from season 2 to season 3 to make it different than it was previously.
Yeah,
Dude,
even everything. Yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, wall bounces in season 2, but then they made it more it was more polished, I guess, in season 3 because now it works a lot of the time.
Off of the side, side axis wall bounce. Yeah, that's really what they fixed. But I'm just like, everything they've been doing is just like, okay, if I hit you, I want your character to blow up. Like I just want you to just
wall carry, etc. Right? Like,
if I can just interrupt for a bit, I need to go now. So thanks for having me, guys.
Oh,
Anyway,
okay.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Ari,
so
once
much.
again.
Fergus.
No, absolute pleasure.
Take care, guys. Take care.
See you,
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah,
But
it's right. It's about, I think from their perspective, it was about keeping the game fresh. That's why they were changing it so much. And in hindsight, that I guess it wasn't the best thing. I think they needed to find different ways to keep the game fresh, whether it be a change to the rank system or some other mode or something. I don't know, but I think that.
But can you sell that? Changes, I don't know. Yeah.
Could you sell what? I think with new characters really helps. A lot of people start playing when there's new characters joining every season. But I mean, how much do season changes actually bring new players in? That's the question. I think it's more maybe like guest characters and all that kind of stuff. But if you want to try and keep the game fresh, I think they needed to find a different way rather than just like really making huge changes to balancing. Like I mean, season 3, yeah,
they could have added I still say that they could have added game modes to the game, which are playable online. Like, why not add Tekken Ball and make it so that you can play it online against friends?
I don't even understand why.
They didn't even do it for
bowling-
Tekken Bowl.
Yeah, I don't even know why that's
That
not
would
even
be the
online
smartest thing
playable.
ever. Imagine if you could actually play. I was playing Heihachi right now, and MYK was playing Steve, and he would throw back once at me at a volleyball, and the thing would get quicker, and I would throw electrics or death fists at it. And at one point, one of us would get hit and just blow up because it's so charged. How funny would that be on screen?
It'd
Like,
be great.
Yeah.
There's so many cool ideas for that.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody know if the Tekken Ball that came out for Wii U was online playable?
I think it was, and people loved it. I think it
I'll ask the
was.
chat.
That
Guys,
was on
was
the
it?
Wii U.
I mean,
Wii
a lot
U
of
almost didn't even exist, right?
On the was it the?
It was Wii U for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean,
Yeah, there's quite a few things they could do to like just keep the game fresh, apart outside of like just making huge changes. I think that's what they were trying to do, and I think it was met with a lot of positivity actually, because Tekken hasn't had that ever, where it's like it will have like seasons and then like the game changes a lot within a year, and it's like wow, this is
Yeah.
crazy, and it's fresh and it's something new, and everyone was actually positive about it, I think. But then it's like wow, it was getting too much, and I think that's where it started to get a bit negative, and that's in hindsight we're looking now.
I always
Yeah,
felt
yeah.
like they did it perfectly back then. Like Tekken 5, they come out with 5.0, 5.1, right? Like
And
5.1
DR.
kind of didn't exist, right? And then it's just like DR final version solidified. It's all like for the most part, it's like came out pretty well. I think even for Tekken 6 with Bloodline Rebellion as well. And then like Tekken Tag 2, they did that with Unlimited in the arcade before they released it to console. And I'm just like, usually that update, whichever one with the R in it is usually pretty good. You know?
Yeah, but I mean, you got to think about it in terms of season 3. This is season 3 BR or whatever right now.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and like so that game, it's not what people wanted necessarily, but it's not terrible either. Like if you go back to Dinosaur
not.
chart we showed earlier, it's not like peak of Tekken 7, but it's not like Tekken blows, you know, arcade originally or whatever 7.0 or something. You know, it's just a little bit worse than it was before, but it's still a great game, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like every time, like I said, every time they put out a big bunch of changes, there's problems, they patch them up, and then it's good. This time they had a mistake with Leroy in the middle, so it took longer to get here, essentially. And so we got a bunch of changes, a bunch of patches. We had 4 patches in 3 months or something, which is like ridiculous for
It's
Tekken.
way too much. Yeah. It's way
Yeah.
too much. I think like maybe 1 or 2 a year is cool. Like even Dragon Ball Fighters, right? For season 2 or season 1. Wait, no, season 1? Whenever GT came out. I forget, right? Whenever GT came out, the second year of Dragon Ball Fighters, they were like, we're not going to update anything for a year. They literally told that to the community. Like, whatever you guys have to deal with, you're going to have to put up with it for at least a year. Yeah, it's like, I kind of miss that, you know? Like maybe at least 6 months to a year.
Yeah,
before,
and then just find other ways to keep the game fresh, man. Whether it be adding in a team battle or you know, making customization better. I remember we used to be able to do decals back in Tag 2, which were really fun, and or maybe just adding like new costumes.
I miss character endings, man. Like, what's the point of arcade mode with like no character endings? Like,
At this
that game
point,
is
that's so
wild.
long gone. I think like a lot of people forget like this game is just getting DLC now, right? Like to get stuff like arcade endings is such a weird DLC request for a game that's like 3
It
years
is,
old or
yeah.
whatever, right? So I
Exactly.
feel like going back to what Spag was saying, you know, other ways to keep the game fresh. You know, season 3 they added the frame data and the practice mode training, whatever I forgot what it's called, versus training against characters, sample combos, etc. Maybe if they have a season 4, we can get all the network stuff we want, like the Wi-Fi indicator, better lobbies, better friend list on Steam, whatever. You know, like
would that be a season 4 change though?
I think that would
we
be.
have to pay for it?
I don't think we're getting that in season 3. Hell no. I
But
think
we
those
would
are
have
all
to pay
big
for
development
it?
features. I
Would
think that's
that
a season
be-
4 update. I think like how you know like you got the sample
free
combo for
update.
free.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
everyone who
I
owns the
think
game.
so.
Yeah. So I think there's that kind of change they can make as long as they fund the development with season 4, because they
I
can't just
agree,
do the
yeah.
shit for free essentially, right?
Rip and Mike, since you guys live in America, do you guys feel the netcode got worse over the time in patches?
See, Mike says yes. I said I don't notice it.
Dude, I
I'm
hella
actually the
noticed
opposite.
it yesterday. It was so bad, dude. It's
You're
like
talking about PC, right?
yeah. Like, dude, I would have like 3-bar matches that were like playable. Now I'm getting like 3-bar.
Who
Yeah.
are you playing though? Are you playing the same
I have no
people?
idea. I
See,
have-
that's what I'm saying. Like for me,
I'm
I
just
play
playing, like on average on like
Sure,
but
but
here-
here,
the thing is, like, I used to play the same people when I like want to have proper online games. And I remember having 5 bars with certain people that I used to play with. And nowadays, I don't get that as much. I mostly get 4 bars with the same people that I had 5 bars before.
I feel like I haven't seen a 5 bar in years. It's like a mythical 5 bar. It's like like a unicorn.
And this is the thing. Literally, like last week, I was streaming, and people were like, "What the hell? How do you have a 5-bar connection?" I'm like, "This is normal for me." like it's not. I haven't experienced it, and a lot of people I play on Monday Night Tekken my subs, and I play the same subs regularly weekly, and I haven't noticed any change. So I feel like people are seeing either a result of playing random people who might have Wi-Fi or Powerline Ethernet or whatever.
I mean, I've had it with like people I play against before too. Like I've had it happen to me against Sukin. Like we were just playing a set online the other day. Yeah, and then it was just desyncing. He was like, "I won that last round." I was like, "No, you didn't."
Okay, and then the other half I was gonna say was, and then you got this pandemic situation where everyone's home using the internet, and like that's putting all kinds of stress on everyone's network. Like I have Spectrum internet, and just a couple days ago, my internet dropped. I'm like, wow, my internet hasn't dropped in over a year and a half, or more than that probably. But I lost it. I lost my internet twice.
Yeah, this was definitely happening before the lockdown.
The pandemic stuff too, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I just haven't noticed it at all.
100%.
It's been happening since like after like mid season 2, like more than halfway to season 3 from season 2. Yeah, it's been happening since like then.
I was told that they someone made a point that they patched the input delay down, so like over time, like the online situation became a lot more noticeable since they patched the input delay, so you can notice like how
the buffer is shorter. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. That's a good point. Yeah, like I said, I've never seen it, and like I've seen so many people complain about it. I played Main Man first of all, like which was like, what the hell? How are we playing this? It's like a 1 bar. It's like California to Sweden, and we were doing. He killed with like a freaking 100% geese combo or something. I was like, what the hell, dude? Like, how do you hit that on a 1 bar connection, right? Like, and so that's the part that gets me. Like people like Tekken 7's netcode is trash. I'm like, it's definitely not the best it could be, but that's pretty fucking good, like that's impressive to me considering where we came from, I don't know, man. I have a different perspective on netcode than most people, I feel like.
Well, that's a combo. That could just be muscle memory. Like,
it could be, and he plays online a lot, and like
just
combo. But it's the thing is, like, even to see stuff though, and like to like confirm the combo even on like a 1 bar connection from California to Sweden when you're having trouble with Sukin in Southern California, you know what I mean? There's something different going on there. Like, I don't know what it is.
Dragon tailing him.
He blocked it. I did try it.
Oh shit.
Yeah, the chat were telling me Dragon Tail. I was like, okay, Dragon Tail. He blocked it. I was like, what the hell, man?
He was listening to your chat.
I'm not sure if you guys played Tekken 7 when it first came out on arcades, but my worst experience of lag was actually 7.0, the vanilla version. That had a crazy amount of input delay, even when you were playing offline.
You talking about the arcade?
Yeah, back in 2015.
Oh, yeah, dude.
It was insane. I mean, I just remembered like not being able to block Dragon Tails in that. I think, am I getting old? And then the game came out on console. I was like, no, it was just a game.
But no, the arcade experience in Japan has been terrible. It's not until round 2 came out with Geese Howard in the arcades, which is late, right? When that version came out, they put an option to disable VSync. That changes the arcade experience completely.
Absolutely.
The arcade was trash until that happened.
Yeah. It got a little bit better with Fated Retribution, but it was still pretty bad. But yeah, when they added the VSync
it was
option,
trash. Yeah.
But nobody goes to arcades, especially now. No.
I don't even think they have season 3 in the arcades yet.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
They don't.
That's another big issue. Like for the people that only play in the arcades, they can't even. They basically have to do old combos for a newer game. You know what I mean? Like it's.
Oh
dumb.
yeah.
Imagine practicing new season 3 geese combos at home, and then they go to the arcades and have to do season 2. Like,
exactly.
They're still using standing 2 instead of back 3.
That's messed up. When I went to Master Cup, like season 3 was out, but the Master Cup was in season 2, and I'm like, sick, Law's wall combo's good again. I was like, it's not nerfed yet. This is awesome. So it happens.
Rip, I wanted to ask you, what's your opinion on Law? Because we have this conversation on every podcast. Like, is he a top 3 character? And
no, he's not top 3. Go ahead. I'll let you finish the question.
No, I mean, Dino and I think he's strong but overrated. He has some solid matchups, but there's nothing. He can't really snowball rounds, and he's kind of a death by 1,000 cuts kind of character. He has everything you need, but there's nothing that really stands out about him. And his high crush isn't great. And his limbs are a bit stubby. So, he has the best 14 frame punish in the game. And yeah, he's got great pokes, slide mix-ups as ever. But yeah, when you compare him to some of the top tiers, not top 3 or even top 5.
I think that Law is one of the strongest characters in the game, like probably like top 10 easy. And then his punishment game is fantastic. His damage is good. It's not great. Like, I feel like they nerfed his wall damage and then they buffed everyone else's. So he's like, oh God, like Law lost a little bit of damage and everyone's caught up. So that's fine in the balance sense, right? When I think of Law, though, I think the problems I see with the character are that he doesn't have a rage drive and he doesn't have a power crush. Like, he's missing core mechanics of Tekken 7, like he has those things obviously, but they're so whack. Like, if you do his power crush forward 4-3, it's launch punishable. And when are you going to use it? It's like to armor. You have to take a guess for a launch punishable attack. Super high risk reward, which is kind of Law's playstyle, so it kind of fits, but it's still not very usable, right? And then you have the rage drive, which is just amazing. It used to be punishable on block, and it starts off with the dragon tail. Boy, it hits so much, and it doesn't really do anything for combos either.
I want to ask something. Do you think they gave him a shit power crush in order to make up for his shitty power crush? Do you think they gave him the DSS parry, or does he have the DSS parry and as like a makeup he has a shitty power crush? Because in the same situations as where you could use the power crush with other characters, Law has his DSS parry.
Oh, I see what you mean. Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, I didn't think about it that way. Because he has a parry, DSS options, they gave him bad power crushes. Yeah. That could be totally the case. And the way I see most of Law is like, I accept those trade-offs because his punishment game is good and because 3+4-4 is like Arya said, is the best 14 frame whiff punisher in the game. So like, I can take those trade-offs and I'm fine with that as a character. I never ask for changes for Law. If I want to change for Law, I want a fast low out of DSS because they changed the animation on DSS 4 now. So it used to be like the Twisted Junkyard DSS 4-3 low kick, mid kick launcher, and he was safe on block. Now he's got the DSS 4. It's like an extended animation, so everybody blocks it once they see the DSS transition, and then Law gets destroyed. So I just wish he had a DSS low that tracked to his left, because that way I could at least use a small poke that stops you from stepping out of DSS mix-ups.
I wish you could use DSS more with that character. I feel like if you know how to get around DSS, if you know that 4-3 doesn't jail and all that, like, when do I use this outside of while standing 4 in combos?
That's it. Just while standing 4 is the only place offensively you can use it now. And even after that, it's super risky. Sidestep right, duck beats all the options. Yeah. So it's like, well, that sucks. DSS was fun. Tekken 6, 4-3 jailing on block into auto parry was ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
But
stupid.
But now, like, I feel like, why don't you, if they take out 3+4-4, right? I think they could either give him back 4-3 jailing or better for me, leave 4-3 not jail, but give him back auto parry off DSS. So you could, before, if you guys don't know how that work, you would do like any transition into DSS would let him parry, but you had to time it. Very strict timing on the parry.
MYK doesn't like it.
He remembers how he remembers what it was like back then.
That shit was so stupid. Just friend James is in the chat. He's the first offender of that. When he hit me with with 4-3 and I would while standing punish, right? He got the auto parry and then he gets the legend kick out.
Legend kick.
Like,
it was sick, right?
I was like, no.
Look, imagine Mike, you get hit by a legend kick, but Law will not be able to punish Steve's extended duck 2 with the launcher anymore.
No, that parry was
Come on. It's a good trade-off.
Was like plus on whiff when you duck it. An unjailing,
Yeah. But now it wouldn't jail. That's what I'm saying. Don't let it jail, but give it the
used to jail.
I know. I'm saying don't give him that, Mike. Come on.
You couldn't do anything. You had to crush it. You had to hit it with a low.
It was bullshit back then. I know. I'm not asking for that back.
You seem traumatized from it.
He is. It was great.
I'm fine with it gone. Please keep it gone. That was like the best thing they changed.
Bring it back. He has no rage drive. Bring it back.
But talking about Law, I said one character earlier is like a perfect character. I forgot which character we were talking about, but I think Law is kind of like in that same boat where it's like essentially his tool set is very perfect.
Yeah.
He's very complete.
I think so too.
Like Jin, Law, they're very rounded. They have pretty much everything you can possibly want.
The real problem with Law, I've got the main thing actually that bothers me with him, his Magic 4 sucks now. And no one notices because they're like, he has a Magic 4, it's great. I'm like, yeah, but it's not as nearly as good as it used to be. Magic 4 used to beat Electrics. So now with this whole, electric or Hell Sweep debacle, Like back in the day, I would have been like, I don't care. I'm not gonna duck or sidestep. I'm just gonna Magic 4 both those options. And like now, I lose to electrics. I would say probably 80% of the time, at least, when I try to Magic 4 it. It's like it hits sometimes, but the majority of the time,
it's not worth the risk.
I'm not even gonna try it. Yeah.
But the move
is it a hitbox change
as opposed to 14? That's a difference.
Wait, what?
The move is 3 frames quicker than an electric in that sense.
Sure, but I'm saying it used to work to beat it.
Yeah.
Is it a hitbox
like
change?
if we're just in neutral, I feel like it has, but I've never seen the old hitbox compared to the new hitbox. So I have no idea. I feel like there's a hitbox hurtbox difference on it. So now, and I also feel like there's more recovery on it too.
Yeah, no, that's what I was gonna say. I think Law's Magic 4 is kind of like Leroy's back 1+2. They added more frames on whiff or some shit.
Yeah, it feels really bad.
Maybe they changed the structure of Law's gameplay design in the sense that they want him to not be as reliant on Magic 4 rather than being him a bit more oppressive with his pressure. I mean, what's the Dragon Hammer? I think forward
1+2.
Yeah, that's a really good move. I mean, down back 3+4 forces crouch.
That's good.
Force crouch trades with back 4. You can't do anything about it.
Nope.
Can't sidestep.
Yeah, I don't really complain about Law.
I feel like they've done that with a lot of key pant moves though. Like Steve's back 1, more whiff recovery. Magic 4's more whiff recovery. Jin's forward 4. They want you to go in. They want Tekken to be a more aggressive game.
Exactly. I think that's the general idea of Tekken 7. They want it to be more about brawling and less about movement. And I think that's also why we've got even if you look at the lows over the time. I mean, a lot of lows that were -14 got buffed to -13. A lot of lows in these patches do more damage. They want it to be more about being in your opponent's face, pressuring him, and him being able to deal with it. Not being able so much to beat those options with movement rather than guessing correctly or pressing into it sometimes.
You know what I think it is? I think it's when it comes to Law, I think I've figured it out, he has everything in it. He has he's a very well-rounded character. But when you think about his comeback mechanic, like you said, he hasn't got a rage drive. You think about so many characters' rage drives, it really helps them to just steal that round and get it back. It's very, very significant. You think about Zafina's rage drive, Steve's rage drive, Paul's rage drive. Like so many
bullshit rage drives. Yeah. You just throw them out. If they work, great. If they block it, whatever.
And just in general, like if you compare a character like Julia to Law, and we saw it when you play Julia the right way, she can be disgusting. Like her combo damage, her ball carry, and just 50-50s from neutral
all day.
And you can't. That's something you can't really do with Law if you're trying to steal back a life lead. Like I remember when AK lost to Bilal. I remember Bilal lost the first set in grand finals, and it got reset, and we thought he's done. And then he stuck with Brian. The advice he got from Imran in the crowd was, don't worry about his slides. He has to do like 8 of them to kill you. You don't worry about them. Just stay in mid range, wait for him to whiff and punish him. Stay calm and have fun. That's what he said. And I think that if you can substitute Law with Shaheen a little bit, like to make that comeback, it's I don't know. Maybe I'm chatting him off, but like 3+4 is good, but you need your opponent to whiff and at high level. How often are they going to do that? I don't know. So like I think the comeback mechanic is a big thing, and not having a rage drive hurts.
Take the throw, take the slide.
But I think in that comparison, Shaheen versus Law, especially for that matchup, Law has way better tools of pressuring you with lows as compared to Shaheen. Of course, Shaheen can do a lot of slides, but he can also do. He's not as efficient with his down 4s or down 3s. Down 3 -14. Brian didn't have the crazy punish back then that he has now, I believe. If I'm sure. He didn't have the full crouch down forward 1. But Law is really good at like pressuring you down and forward 1+2 on counter at launches. So I think,
but you're gonna have to outpoke your opponent though.
Yeah.
And if you're using down back 3 as your go-to poke to, you're susceptible to getting counter hit and kept out. So that's what I mean. That it's like I'm not saying Law's a bad character. Again, don't misinterpret. I'm saying he's very well-rounded. And he's a top character, but comeback mechanics in tournament. That's why.
I think that's why Shaheen shines a little bit more than Law too. Even though they're very similar kind of characters, very similar slide mix-up characters, right? The big mix-up comes from their slide, but even like Shaheen's slide, I think is better than Law's. How it like keeps you in the vortex, essentially, right? And also the mid mix-up from the slide is a hop kick from Shaheen or orbital, right? Safe orbital. Law's is a power to the people -18. I'm gonna die.
Death on block.
And also like the little pokes, right? Like, yeah, the low game, yeah, Law might be better in terms of like safety. Down back three is a little bit safer than Shaheen's down three, right? But Shaheen has down 4, and he has a better down forward 1. His down forward 1's amazing.
Yeah, down forward 1.
It's half the
Yeah, and his
screen.
hit-
It's crazy.
Hit confirmable rage drive for like 90 damage and stuff too. Like, yeah, he's got a lot of
14
like,
frame
really
as well.
big
So you can use it as a punisher. Like, yeah.
Punish too.
And yeah. So like that's what I mean. It's like the comeback mechanic in a slightly more volatile Tekken that we have today. I think that's where Law kind of lacks. If you imagine like Law had a forward one, like a Dragon Hammer Rage Drive or something. I don't know, or something else which did like like just send you to the moon and you could do like some crazy combos and like
Rage drive slide.
yeah.
Watch. All right, give it to me. Yo, that would be sick, actually.
I can kind of see that.
Standing too. It's like I got rage. Which one are you gonna guess?
That is terrifying. I don't like it already.
Oh man, don't give me any ideas, man.
Yeah. See, this is why I don't like talking about Law, because I think he's good already, and like if he gets buffed after this, I'm gonna be like, oh crap, I don't. It's gonna kind of like Fergus was like, are you serious? Like, I don't know what I would do with that. Like, I'm like, just leave him. He's fine.
Yeah.
He's in a good spot.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, guys, we've been at this for like 4 hours and 20 minutes, and
It's time.
I think that's the perfect
it is time.
Yeah.
It is 4:20. All right, guys, it's been great. It's been awesome. Thank you so much for your time. And anytime you want to come back on this, dude, just let me know. I'd love to have you back. It's been awesome.
Yeah,
It's been great, man.
It was really good. Thanks for having us on, man.
Thanks for having us, man.
My pleasure,
Was
guys.
love.
It's been
My
fun.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Oh.
All right. Boom, indeed. Sound bad. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Cheers. See ya.
Bye bye, guys.
Later, guys.